Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. And now it had switched to natural. Fang Heng tried stepping forward. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As he approached, the frost thorn flower demon sensed an intruder, and the direction in which their blossoms opened all shifted toward Fang Heng. Shoo, shoo shoo. In the next instant, frost-covered leaves flew toward Fang Heng densely, enveloping him in their attack range. HMPH. Fang Heng snorted softly, and his aura exploded suddenly. Bang. Bang bang. The leaves flying at Fang Heng shattered in midair. Whoosh. With a light tap of his toe on the ground, Fang Heng darted forward at high speed, ignoring the massive wave of incoming frost leaves, rushing into the midst of the frost thorn flower demons. Bang. Bang bang bang. All the frost leaves that attacked Fang Heng continuously exploded on his body with a boom, forming layers of ice crystals on the surface of his skin, but they were completely unable to affect him in any way. They couldn't even break through his defense. Huh? Fang Heng frowned slightly. The bark of a tall ancient tree in front of the flower demons quickly fell away, and its roots slowly detached from the ground, the trunk positioning itself in front of Fang Heng. A treant. The frost ancient tree elder swung its thick frost-covered branch heavily at Fang Heng. Hey! Fang Heng narrowed his eyes and swept forward with the metal long rod in his hand. Bang! One strike. The entire frost ancient tree elder exploded in front of Fang Heng. A faint aura of natural energy leaked out from the shattered fragments of the ancient tree, quickly absorbed into Fang Heng's body, settling in his sea of consciousness. Fang Heng's mind stirred. Natural element energy. His natural science level had also reached the maximum level, and he currently lacked an advancement book to level up further. Just like before, the natural element energy didn't dissipate automatically, it stayed entrenched in his sea of consciousness. Earlier, he encountered an elemental type. Now it was a natural type. It seemed like this domain was meant to test players' abilities, a place to provide academic energy. Could this be the so-called enlightenment treasure? Whoosh! Fang Heng stopped thinking, and his figure darted rapidly through the frost ancient tree elders and frost thorn flower demons, continuously swinging the alloy long rod in his hand. Bang! Bang! Bang bang! Natural element creatures in the forest domain kept exploding in large numbers, and streams of pure natural element energy flowed into his body. After clearing for a while, Fang Heng stopped his attack and took a step back, withdrawing from the battle zone. Something felt wrong. The frost ancient tree elders and frost thorn flower demons were regenerating extremely fast. No matter how many he eliminated, new ones kept growing, seemingly endless. Normally, he wouldn't be in a rush. He could just slowly grind it out and farm natural energy along the way. But now it was different. He had other matters to attend to. Right. That thing in the middle. That strange ice crystal stone pillar. Shoo. Fang Heng accelerated again, smashed 2 frost ancient tree elders blocking the way with his metal rod, and rushed straight toward the central ice crystal stone pillar, ignoring the attacks of the surrounding natural element creatures. He examined it closely after approaching. The outer layer of the stone pillar was wrapped in vines, beneath which was a thick layer of ice crystals, and only at the bottom could the stone pillar's engraved surface be seen. Pah! With a strike of the rod, the outer ice crystal and vines instantly shattered, revealing the underlying pillar. It looked like some kind of ritual stone pillar. There were runes within the carved patterns that could be activated. Fang Heng tried touching one of the rune crystals with his finger. Buzz. The rune crystal lit up faintly at the touch. Immediately, a ripple of natural element energy surged from within the ritual stone pillar, flowing directly into Fang Heng's body through his finger. Natural element energy. It was hundreds of times more than what he gained from killing natural creatures. Fang Heng's eyelid twitched slightly. Such a good deal? Absorb. Absorb it all. Fang Heng kept his right hand pressed on the altar-like stone pillar. With a flick of his left wrist, the Holy Book of Oaths appeared before him. Skill Thunder of Judgment. Positive effect. He had a chance to deal lightning counter damage upon receiving physical attacks. Feng Heng quickly applied the Thunder of Judgment counter effect to himself and stood boldly in place, ignoring the attacking natural element creatures as he continued absorbing the energy overflowing from the altar. Boom. Boom boom. Natural element creatures gathered in the Frost Forest domain continuously attacked Feng Heng. The Thunder of Judgment effect triggered frequently, striking them with bolts of purple lightning. Feng Heng's defense was already strong enough to withstand most attacks. With his undead body's self-recovery effect, taking the damage was no issue. With his high mental strength, the Judgment Lightning counterattack effect was terrifying. Each lightning strike had a small area of effect, and with every strike, a portion of the area would be cleared of enemies, leaving behind natural energy that flowed rapidly into Feng Heng's body. Feng Heng shifted his gaze away from the surrounding natural creatures and looked down at the altar again. Absorb it. Now familiar with the energy flow from the altar, he actively pushed his mental strength to draw out the power. Immediately, dozens of times more powerful natural energy surged out and flooded into his sea of consciousness. If it had been an ordinary player, their sea of consciousness wouldn't have been able to withstand so much natural element energy. But Feng Heng was different. His sea of consciousness had been expanded multiple times, and with boosts from Avakia, the demonic seed, and necromancy, the space in his sea of consciousness was vast. A frenzy of absorption. He took in as much as it gave. After more than 5 full minutes of absorption, the stone altar's natural energy was completely depleted, even the last drop sucked dry. Only then did Feng Heng let go. The stone pillar, having lost its power, quickly weathered away into a pile of dust. Feng Heng glanced around. With the central stone pillar gone, the natural creatures on the ice stopped spawning, and the vines attached to the ice surface rapidly faded away. Chapter 2995, Treasure Strange. After completely absorbing the energy, there were no signs of any other passages. Was the stone pillar really just for a trial? Feng Heng didn't think too much about it and left the area, continuing to explore forward. Just after leaving the open forest area, another familiar maze passage appeared ahead. On the icy surface of the maze, 2 ice crystal puppets began to condense. Whoosh! Feng Heng's figure turned into a black shadow. Bang! Bang bang! The 2 ice crystal puppets were shattered by Feng Heng before they had fully formed. The overflowing elemental energy was quickly absorbed by Feng Heng. No time to waste. Feng Heng sped up, wandering through the maze in the direction of the Seed of Ouroboros signal. After wandering for more than 10 minutes, Feng Heng slowed his pace and stopped at a fork in the maze. To the left was a path leading to a somewhat familiar ice crystal hall trial area, while the other fork led to a long and narrow maze corridor. Looking into the ice crystal hall, a group of natural element creatures could already be seen. Another natural element trial? Feng Heng couldn't help but stop, gently clenched his fists, and swallowed hard. Damn it. Still couldn't resist the temptation. He was already here anyway. The natural element energy was right in front of him. Might as well do another sweep before leaving. Without further hesitation, Feng Heng stepped quickly into the ice crystal square trial area. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! As soon as he entered the trial zone, a flurry of frost leaves flew toward him. Thunder of Judgment. Boom. Boom 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 boom. Meanwhile, the various federal teams that had entered the Land of Enlightenment also began to take action one after another. To avoid unnecessary trouble, the Central Federation and several regional federal teams split up to explore the maze. Soon, the players also encountered all kinds of creatures and fell into difficulties. Somewhere in the maze, the Central Federation had dispatched a team of over 700 people for this operation, but they were scattered across different areas upon entering the maze. Roa was the head captain in charge of this operation from the Central Federation. Before entering the Land of Enlightenment's maze, he already had doubts about the mission. What was certain was that the Central Federation had prior knowledge of the general layout of the Ice Crystal Maze. They even had a marked location for the Enlightenment treasure. But something was odd. If the superiors had given a directive to seize the treasure at all costs, then why invite all the other federations to participate in the treasure hunt mission, and even open the mission to the general public players? Wouldn't it have been better to take action secretly and claim the treasure for themselves? Once the team was assembled, Roa, concerned about others getting there first, immediately led a squad of dozens toward the marked treasure location. Along the way, the team was attacked by ice-type creatures. Roa chose not to entangle with the ice element creatures. He quickly used spells and firearms to suppress them, then passed through rapidly. He also completely ignored the various trial stone pillar areas encountered along the way, heading straight for the treasure location. They had to get to the Enlightenment treasure before any other team. It's just ahead. In just half an hour, the Central Federation elite team regrouped several dispersed squads along the way, forming a team of over 100, and stopped in front of an ice barrier. Yes, this should be the place. Roa compared the map's marked location, walked slowly forward, and pressed his hand against the ice barrier wall in front. That's right, the ice wall was very thin. It was added later. Roa said in a deep voice, "Break it open." Several elite players stepped forward, summoning the Book of Elements before them. Skill Flame Jet. Several streams of deep red flame spewed out from the Book of Elements in front of more than a dozen players, gathering and bombarding the ice barrier. Under the fire spell's assault, the ice barrier gradually melted away. After a moment, an opening dissolved in the ice barrier. The moment the entrance was breached, a visible white frost burst out from within. The Enlightenment treasure is inside the cavern. Everyone, be cautious and prepare for battle. We'll scout ahead, the rest of you follow in stages. Roa signaled the team to get ready as he and a group of Federation elites carefully stepped into the cavern. Huh? What's that? Upon entering the cavern and seeing its interior, the players' faces all turned serious. In the center of the cavern hall stood a stone pillar. Coiled around the stone pillar was a twisted, squirming, viscous mass. Like a monster, its body resembled a lump of meat paste, winding and twisting around the stone pillar. Rotten flesh continuously fell from the column, turning into a pile of decayed meat on the ground. Everyone's expression grew grave as they looked at each other. Was this grotesque thing the so-called Enlightenment treasure? What the hell was it? If one looked closely, beneath the layers of rotting flesh, a decaying human face could gradually be seen. A human? Roa narrowed his eyes and gestured for the team to keep their distance. This thing was extremely strange. Better observe the situation first before deciding anything. Archbishop, do you recognize this thing? Since the Western District Federation's Star Map project had run into trouble, the Central Federation had grown closer to the Holy Court. The Holy Court also accepted the Central Federation's invitation for this mission and sent a sharp elite team led personally by Archbishop Whiteman. Everyone, be cautious. I sense an evil aura from it. Archbishop Whiteman stepped out from the crowd, his face serious. But even he had never seen such a bizarre and horrifying creature, and could only warn everyone to act carefully. Roa returned to the center of the team and had a brief conversation with a few invited experts and headquarters officials. They couldn't wait any longer. Any more delay, and another player team might find this place. Roa nodded at one of his trusted subordinates. Let's test it. The subordinate immediately pulled out a small caliber pistol from his waist and aimed at the humanoid pillar. Bang. 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 3 bullets hit the decayed flesh on the pillar, bursting into 3 splashes of black blood. The strange substance merely lost a surface layer of decayed flesh. It didn't appear to have suffered any real damage. Should they try something more intense? While the players were still puzzled, one who specialized in alchemy magic arrays suddenly said, "Everyone, look, don't those 5 stone platforms in the corners of the hall look like they form a ceiling magic array?" Everyone turned to look at the structures placed around them. It was indeed so. There was a headless statue of a god in each corner of the hall, each standing before a sacrificial platform. When they first entered the hall, they thought it was just an ordinary decoration. Now, upon closer inspection, it really did resemble a ceiling magic array. Is it sealing the Enlightenment treasure? Not sure. Several players who specialized in alchemy magic arrays stepped forward to examine it and then looked up. Confirmed. It is some sort of sealing magic array, and the seal is still active. Chapter 2996, Transfer. How about trying to remove the seal? Archbishop Whiteman reminded, the seal might also be suppressing an evil entity. Recklessly breaking it could cause the creature outside the stone pillar to fully awaken. The operation of this alchemy magic array is very unique, never seen before. Is there a better solution? Can we try opening just half of it? A group of players proficient in alchemy gathered around the stone seal beside the magic array and discussed it for quite a while, but they couldn't come up with an effective solution. Roa was getting impatient. Do it. Remove the seal. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility. If they waited any longer, people from the other federations would arrive, and the Enlightenment treasure wouldn't be easy to divide then. Archbishop Whiteman sighed inwardly and nodded. Very well. Everyone, please prepare thoroughly. Several players skilled in alchemy gathered around the stone slab, discussed briefly, and tried to move the stone embedded in the sacrificial altar. Bang. The stone was extremely heavy. As it was removed from the sealed slab and dropped to the ground, it let out a loud crash. Huh? Look. What is that? Ka-ka, ka-ka-ka. As one seal was lifted, faint sounds came from the central stone pillar. The rotting flesh on the pillar began to twist and squirm more violently, as if the decaying flesh suppressed by the pillar was struggling in pain. A ferocious face within the flesh gradually became clearer. The players stood around the fleshy pillar, momentarily unsure of what to do. Ka, ka, ka 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 ka. The sacrificial altars throughout the hall began to shake violently out of control. This is bad. The seal was being suppressed. Roa's expression changed. Boom. Boom. Boom boom. The stones suppressing the sealed altars were being forcefully displaced and dropped to the floor. The decaying flesh wrapped around the central stone pillar began retreating rapidly, until the sealed monster within was revealed. It was human. The sealed human figure appeared tall and slender. Most of its body had already decayed and was fused into a mass of rotting flesh. The remaining parts revealed white bones and sinewy muscle fibers. That is. Archbishop Whiteman stared intently at the slowly emerging figure, a chill crawling up his spine. Ka. At some unknown point, tiny black exoskeleton bugs had begun to crawl out from every corner of the hall. They moved rapidly across the floor, clicking loudly as they scuttled toward the central decaying human figure. Watch out! Fall back! Whiteman suddenly realized the danger, shouted aloud, and, together with the priests of the Holy Court behind him, cast a defensive barrier. Whatever that thing was, whether or not it was the Enlightenment treasure, it was dangerous. In the next moment, the human figure within the rotting flesh slowly opened its eyes and looked at Roa's Central Federation player group, suddenly raising its hand toward them. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The surrounding decayed flesh suddenly launched out like explosive projectiles, engulfing the players. Bang! Bang bang! The dense rotten flesh projectiles exploded against the holy barrier. The decayed flesh had a powerful corrosive effect. After the explosion, the residual corruption caused secondary damage to the barrier. Group 2, cover. Retreat. Fall back. The hull was narrow and not suited for effective combat. Roa shouted and quickly directed the player team to retreat in an orderly manner. The Elite Federation players cast various spells and shattered the incoming rotten flesh, retreating in an orderly manner while protected by the holy barriers cast by Archbishop Whiteman and the holy believers. They withdrew through the breached ice soul tunnel, leaving the cave and exiting the defensive area. What now? After exiting back into the outer ice crystal maze through the breach, everyone exchanged glances quickly. It seemed they had released something terrible. But what about the Enlightenment treasure? Recalling the brief battle just now, the sealed rotting entity had just broken free and hadn't fully recovered its strength, and they hadn't found anything clearly related to the Enlightenment treasure. Was the intel wrong? Maybe we have to defeat that thing to obtain the Enlightenment treasure? Take it down? The thought of that strange rotten creature made the players shudder. Roa turned and looked at Archbishop Whiteman. Archbishop, do you have confidence in dealing with that mysterious creature we just saw? Whiteman's expression turned heavy as he replied, if my guess is correct, it might be Ouroboros. Roa's face changed instantly as he said, what? You mean that eternal disaster? Very similar. Whiteman couldn't confirm it either. He said solemnly, if it really is Ouroboros, then we're in serious trouble. We must find a way to eliminate it completely, or this world will fall into calamity. Roa looked back at the entrance of the ice-covered cavern, took a deep breath, and said, form up, establish a line, prepare to purge the creature. Just as the Federation elite team finished forming ranks, several of the black bugs seen earlier quickly crawled out from inside the cavern. Crush them. The backline players unleashed a coordinated wave of fire spells toward the cavern entrance. The black bugs emerging from within didn't have strong resistance to magic and were quickly burned to ashes under the high-concentration fire attacks, crackling as they died. He is coming. Archbishop Whiteman stared at the cavern entrance, raising his scepter, fully focused on what lay beyond. Not far from Roa's team, in the shadows, several pairs of eyes were watching them closely. Master, even though He was suppressed for so long, his strength hasn't diminished at all. Aren't you worried about Feng Heng? I'm not. Zai watched Roa's Central Federation player group and said flatly, there may be a gap in strength, but Feng Heng is not foolish. He'll choose to build up his power and use the strength of the Titan bloodline to deal with He. After all, that thing is just a mindless monster now. But the subordinates still seemed worried. They remembered that during the last time He was sealed, it took the combined effort of Zai, Mu Kingston, and Suza to suppress him completely, and they had to leave behind a portion of their essence to maintain the seal until now. To deal with a mindless, incomplete seed of Ouroboros if Feng Heng dies, that only means he's unworthy. The subordinates fell silent, a chill rising in their hearts. They couldn't see through Zai at all. They had spent an enormous amount of effort cultivating Feng Heng, with Zai putting everything into it. Yet now, after successfully cultivating the seed, she had adopted a hands-off approach, only providing minimal guidance. And now she spoke with such indifference, as if she could discard everything at any moment? Chapter 2997, A Trap Maze Passage. A player's squad was moving forward along the passage, searching slowly, clearing the ice crystal monsters encountered along the way one by one. They also discovered that ice crystal creatures had very thick HP and high physical attack strength. However, as long as they were careful and relied on the team's strength, they could still defeat them without injury. Once they killed an ice crystal creature, they would receive an injection of elemental energy. Elemental science players naturally regarded this as a great treasure. The elemental energy gained from killing one was enough to make up for several weeks of hard training, and even ordinary players who were not specialized in elemental science could temporarily store this power in their sea of consciousness, forming a self-protection barrier there. If you were to suffer an attack targeting the sea of consciousness in the future, this energy would be able to provide protective resistance. The player's squad was orderly farming monsters when suddenly they saw a figure swiftly passing on the right side of the passage. Huh? That was... Whoosh! Bang! Bang! As the figure quickly passed, two explosive sounds rang out. The players who were dragging the wandering ice crystal puppets felt a sudden shock in their hearts. What the hell? They saw two ice crystal puppets, exhausted by their continuous effort, instantly shatter when the shadow brushed past them. Was that a player? Several glanced at the rapidly running figure along the passage, exchanged looks, and surprise appeared in their eyes. Wow! Extremely powerful burst force. One strike completely shattered the ice crystal puppets. Forget about how that player struck, they didn't even clearly see that person's face during the entire battle. Who exactly was that person? Feng Heng was running quickly inside the passage. He had spent over an hour moving slowly, absorbing 4 ice crystal trial squares along the way. Among them, 3 were natural science trial grounds, and 1 belonged to elemental science. He could already feel himself getting closer to the seed of Ouroboros. Suddenly, Feng Heng's heart jumped. The aura of the seed of Ouroboros suddenly erupted on a large scale. And it was moving? Perfect timing. The spreading perception of Ouroboros gave him a clearer positioning. Feng Heng quickly searched in the direction where the perception was spreading. Even so, he still spent over 10 minutes wandering inside the ice crystal maze. He perceived that he was getting closer to the location of the seed of Ouroboros. After turning another ice crystal corner, fierce ripples of battle erupted ahead. Were those people from the Central Federation? Feng Heng did not immediately join the fight but slowed down and carefully approached the rear of the Federation player team, observing cautiously along the way. The Central Federation team had nearly 200 players, each an elite player in the game, many of whom had partially decomposed their locks in the real world. From a distance, the Federation players were gathering a holy barrier, retreating while fighting. As for the opponent, Feng Heng looked up from afar. On the ice surface, countless small, dense insect creatures gathered together, rolling on the ground to form a huge round ball body, visually resembling a sphere covered with thick scale armor. The beetle aggregation sphere rolled toward the Central Federation. Various spells slammed against the beetle polymer. Huh? Holy element? Feng Heng quickly noticed several Holy Court church members in the team. From their decorations, the leader was of Archbishop level in the Holy Court. Since the last Holy Realm incident, news about the Holy Court had been scarce. According to information from the Undead Council, the Holy Court had completely retracted in various worlds, stopping all hostilities and taking on a reclusive stance. Player rumors said that after the God King's revival, he quickly issued orders to concentrate most elite forces on rebuilding the Holy Realm. Then the God King entered seclusion again. It was well known that the Central Federation had close ties with the Holy Court, so seeing Holy Court members in the Federation team was normal. Be careful. While Feng Heng was still observing and assessing, the Central Federation was gradually falling into a desperate situation. Almost all attacks were absorbed by the beetles condensed by the seed of Ouroboros. Federation Commander Roa felt anxious. The situation was very unfavorable. They couldn't win. Their current strength could not shake the external defense of the beetle body. Moreover, the seed of Ouroboros' power was still gradually increasing. It would only become harder to deal with. Forget about the Enlightenment treasure. At this rate, the squad might be completely wiped out. Was this maze a trap? What to do? While thinking, Roa heard a player whisper beside him, "Sir, the key on your chest." Huh? Key? Roa instinctively looked down at the key of heaven enlightenment rune hanging on his chest and was startled. He didn't know when it had begun to emit a faint light, levitating and pointing toward the passage behind the ice crystal maze. The key was giving a direction? Roa frowned, suddenly having a premonition. The treasure marked on the map was probably just a switch. The key of heaven enlightenment was the real guide to finding the true enlightenment treasure. Archbishop Whiteman of the Holy Court saw the key and also revealed a thoughtful expression in his eyes. Breaking the silence, he said, "Everyone, the power of disaster is far too overwhelming. In my opinion, this ice crystal maze is likely a kind of trial. We need to rely on the power of the enlightenment treasure to withstand the disaster. How about we split up? You go search for the key of heaven enlightenment, and we will stay behind to hold off the disaster for a while." Roa felt Archbishop Whiteman's words were very likely the truth, but hesitated for a moment. Don't hesitate, hurry. Holy power restrains disaster. Gain the strength of the enlightenment treasure, then come back to help us. Alright. Archbishop, we're counting on you. We'll leave this to you. Roa no longer hesitated. He gave a slight nod to Archbishop Whiteman, signaling the team to leave quickly. Formation Holy Seal. Whiteman shouted, and over a dozen archbishops of the Holy Court behind him quickly gathered and formed into formation. Dark golden holy light rapidly spread from beneath the feet of the priests of the Holy Court, surging forward and filling the ice crystal passage. The space, affected by the ripples of holy power, shimmered with specks of starlight. In an instant, the entire space became infused with ripples of holy power. The advancing disaster of the seed of Ouroboros, affected by the holy power, seemed to be solidified by the holy space. Its movement rapidly slowed until it came to a complete halt. Go. Seeing the Holy Court's skill take effect, Roa immediately led the team to retreat. At the same time, he slightly frowned, his gaze sweeping over the young man standing at the back of the passage. Alone. Wearing a strange mask, he had been standing there for several minutes. The man's figure and aura gave Roa a strangely familiar feeling, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Chapter 2998, Assist. Roa didn't think much, nor did he have time to. His gaze swept past Fang Heng, and he immediately led his team in pursuit of the direction indicated by the Key of Heaven Enlightenment. Fang Heng also quickly scanned Roa and his team. Hey. So they ran off because they couldn't win, huh? As always, leaving the mess for others to clean up. It was quite strange, though. When did people from the Holy Court start volunteering to stay behind? Fang Heng gently rubbed his shoulder. Fine then. The seed of Ouroboros was already trapped. What was there to wait for? Whoosh. Fang Heng tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and switched to his godly form. His figure turned into a streak of dark light, shooting rapidly toward the trapped worm body of the seed of Ouroboros. Archbishop Whiteman and his Holy Court team had already noticed Fang Heng, who had appeared behind them. At first, they had thought Fang Heng was just an ordinary passing player. They hadn't expected him to suddenly erupt with a powerful aura and charge straight toward them. Their hearts skipped a beat. What the hell? What was up with this guy? Whiteman had been clear from the start they couldn't possibly deal with the seed of disaster with their current strength. Fortunately, the seed of disaster had only shown a strong defense so far, with its offensive capabilities being somewhat lacking. They had used a Holy Seal skill to temporarily suppress it, slow it down, and gradually wear down its strength. But Fang Heng's appearance completely broke that balance. Due to Fang Heng's intrusion, the Holy Seal skill suffered a massive disruption. Its sealing power sharply declined. Boom. What? In the next moment, they sensed a sudden burst of holy attribute energy from Fang Heng. Whiteman and the Holy Court players all turned pale. It was holy power. The explosive holy energy was so intense that it completely disrupted the sealing force of the Holy Seal skill. At the same time, the concentrated burst of holy power struck directly at the insect polymer. Shield breaker strike. Whoosh. Accompanied by a sharp screech, a golden streak of light flashed past everyone's eyes. Boom. The divine golden light slammed into the clustered exoskeleton, instantly shattering its outer layer. A black shadow shot out from the broken shell and was sent flying backward. Struck by the violent holy ripple, the Holy Seal skill immediately lost control and dissipated. All the Holy Court players fixed their gaze on Fang Heng, disbelief written across their faces. That powerful wave of holy energy. He was from the Holy Court? And he had shattered the insect polymer with just one strike. Just one hit, and everyone already concluded that his strength far surpassed any one of them. Archbishop Whiteman stared tightly at Fang Heng. Whoosh. After landing a hit, Fang Heng transformed into a black shadow again and quickly pursued the black figure of the seed of Ouroboros that had been knocked away. The shield breaker strike's damage effect was tied to the remaining energy of the holy shield. At the start, when the shield was full, the damage was maximized, destroying the insect polymer in one blow. Boom. The black figure, partially exposed from the beetle swarm, was still mostly in a state of decay. Its body was thrown into the air and crashed hard into the icy wall behind. Countless beetles immediately swarmed in from all directions, trying to reassemble around Hay. At the same time, Hay slowly lifted his head and raised a hand. Whiteman's heart tightened when he saw this, and he shouted, "Watch out!" Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sticky, black corruption clinging to Hay's body suddenly shot outward at high speed. Each glob of sludge carried terrifying corrosive and poisonous effects. Whoosh! Fang Heng's figure suddenly vanished in midair. Secondary space projection. When Fang Heng reappeared, he was already at Hay's right side. Bang! With one punch, the insects that had just begun to reassemble on the rotten flesh were blown apart again. Fang Heng reached out and grabbed forward. His right hand pierced straight through the corrupted outer layer of Hei's body, and a violent corrosive reaction immediately erupted from his hand. Huh? Fang Heng frowned slightly. Though it was faint, he felt his strength being absorbed by the corruption. Be careful. Don't touch him directly. Close-range attacks only let him absorb your attribute abilities. Attribute absorption? So that was this thing's special ability? Fang Heng understood. No wonder this creature seemed so weak, aside from its hard shell. It must have evolved in his special ability direction, this seed of Ouroboros. If that was the case. Bang! Fang Heng forcefully flung Hei away, sending him crashing into the ice wall again. Then he raised his hand and aimed at Hei. Hei was immediately controlled by the power of God's punishment. His body floated uncontrollably into the air. Fang Heng narrowed his eyes. God's punishment. Boom. A deep purple lightning bolt crashed down from above. The outer corrupted sludge of the seed of Ouroboros was instantly purified and partly scattered by the power of God's punishment. Chunks of rotting sludge fell from its charred body, revealing the black-brown skeleton inside. Although his sacred study hadn't improved much, after leveling up his necromancy to the super god level, Fang Heng's overall spirit attribute had skyrocketed, and the effectiveness of his God's punishment skill was greatly enhanced. Hey! Fang Heng sensed that the seed of Ouroboros had already suffered immense damage from that one strike of God's punishment. So weak. Compared to Proust, it was not even on the same level. Then let's go again. Keep going. Boom. Boom 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 boom. Over 30 bolts of lightning struck down in succession. Hei's HP was almost completely depleted. His form was mangled beyond recognition and engulfed in blazing holy fire. The corrupted sludge that made up his body was burned and fell off in chunks, emitting a scorched stench. Fang Heng coldly watched the dying seed of Ouroboros. Meanwhile, not far away in the shadows, several gazes were focused on Fang Heng. A hint of surprise finally showed Danzō's always calm face. Fang Heng. When did his strength reach this level? Beside her, a few subordinates were even filled with fear. The seed of Ouroboros, Hei, was terrifyingly powerful even while sealed in the ice crystal maze, but in front of Fang Heng, he had been crushed by the effects of God's punishment. The entire battle hadn't even been fast-paced. It was simply one-sided domination. In both attributes and abilities. The subordinates nervously swallowed and said, "My lord, we." Zai also fell into silence. According to the original plan, Fang Heng wasn't supposed to be able to handle the seed of Ouroboros. Hey! This was meant to be a trial for him. If all went well, Fang Heng would obtain the power of the Titan sealed within the ice crystal maze, awaken the Titan bloodline, and only then, after strengthening, would he face the seed of Ouroboros. Zai had intended to use this as a chance to gauge Fang Heng's strength and stimulate his potential. She never imagined Fang Heng would defeat the seed of Ouroboros without even awakening the Titan power, relying solely on his own strength. And it had seemed so easy. Zai pondered for a moment, then a faint smile appeared on her lips. She murmured, "You surprised me, Fang Heng. All the better. Let's go. There's no reason for us to stay any longer." Chapter 2999, dealing with it. Under the continuous scorching of the holy fire, the corrupted object, the seed of Ouroboros, was completely burned into a pile of embers. Fang Heng waved his hand, and a grey cocoon flew out from the embers. Kai. A rift appeared in the palm of his hand and quickly devoured the cocoon. Hint, the player killed the seed of Ouroboros. Hey, hint, the player obtained the seed of Ouroboros, high tier, damaged, in the process of fusion. Hint, the player could directly fuse the seed of Ouroboros to gain skill experience points, or consume it directly to obtain a special modifiable ability. Attribute absorption, skill attribute absorption, skill description, during attacks, could absorb the enemy's attributes for personal use. Each attack that dealt damage could absorb a small amount of the enemy's attribute values. Absorbed attributes could be stored for 8 hours. The absorbed attributes could stack, up to a maximum of 30% of the user's highest attribute. Special description. This skill requires the use of 2 available modification slots. Fang Heng quickly read through the description of the newly acquired cocoon and began pondering silently. It was another cocoon in the process of fusion. He could choose to obtain the skill as a modifiable option or directly convert it into skill experience points. Attribute absorption seemed to be a very good ability, and it should correspond to the seed of Ouroboros he had just encountered. At first glance, the amount of attributes absorbed per attack wasn't high, and single unit absorption had an upper limit. But upon further thought, he had plenty of zombie clones. In an ideal scenario, during large-scale group battles, over time, the zombie horde could gain an overall attribute boost of up to 30% thanks to attribute absorption. And when ganging up on single boss-type or leader-type creatures, the effect would be even more significant. He only needed a swarm of liquor-formed zombies to charge in and bite wildly, and the boss creature's attributes would begin to deteriorate. Ideally, the enemy's attributes could be completely drained, especially when paired with the zombie horde's division effect. However, the cost of 2 optional modification slots was indeed steep. This made his available options quite limited. Fang Heng calculated silently and chose to retain the skill. Greetings, Great Sage. Archbishop Whiteman and a group of Holy Court believers came forward to pay their respects. If there had been any doubts before, witnessing the Great Sage's divine move, God's punishment completely dispelled them. Whiteman marveled at Fang Heng's youth. He had heard recently that the Holy Realm's Great Sage Fang Bei had arrived in their world, but he had never expected to encounter him at such a moment. Even more surprising was that the Great Sage's abilities far exceeded their expectations. He had managed to eliminate the terrifying disaster creature single-handedly. Recently, the Holy Court's influence and control in the real world had been significantly weakened, and tensions with the Western District Federation had grown serious. The arrival of the newly appointed Great Sage Fang Bei brought tremendous confidence back to the Holy Court in the real world. Rise. Fang Heng swept his gaze across the Holy Court believers before finally resting it on Whiteman. He nodded and said, "Tell me what happened. How did you all come here?" "Yes, Great Sage." Whiteman stood up and began explaining from the start. The Holy Court has always worked closely with the Central Federation. Not long ago, news of the Key of Heaven enlightenment spread. The Holy Court was invited by the Central Federation to assist in the exploration of the Land of Enlightenment. After listening, Fang Heng felt puzzled and asked, "Where did the Federation get the location of the Enlightenment treasure?" "We're not sure. The Federation didn't disclose that." "And the people from the Central Federation? They just left you here?" After the disaster seal was destroyed, the Key of Heaven enlightenment emitted an abnormal ripple. "We chose to stay behind to temporarily suppress the disaster's power to buy time." The Central Federation had already gone ahead to the indicated zone. Fang Heng, hearing this, pulled out the Key of Heaven enlightenment from his backpack. Buzz. Just as Whiteman had said, the Key of Heaven enlightenment emitted a faint glow and began to levitate, its tip pointing toward the maze passage behind the group. "Let's go have a look." "Yes, Great Sage." Ice Crystal Maze. It wasn't only the Central Federation's ROAS team, nearly every player team's Key of Heaven enlightenment had activated, guiding players into a certain location within the Ice Crystal Maze. Most player teams were advancing in the direction indicated by the key. Archbishop Whiteman and his party followed Fang Heng forward, increasingly astonished at Fang Heng's strength. Fang Heng jogged steadily at the front of the team. Wherever he passed, the ice crystal golems hadn't even fully condensed before being completely shattered. The others had no choice but to pick up the pace to catch up. Eventually, they followed the guidance of the Key of Heaven enlightenment into a new ice crystal trial hall. From ahead came the sounds of intense combat. Fang Heng signaled the Holy Court followers behind him to slow down as they entered the trial hall and observed from a distance. What a coincidence. It was the Eastern Federation people. 50-plus players from the Eastern Federation, led by Chen Yu, were trapped near the center of the trial hall. Shoo. Shoo shoo. White orb-like creatures, fast as lightning, emerged repeatedly from active spatial light spots, launching themselves at the players. Though Chen Yu's team was strong, they were at a disadvantage against the elusive orb monsters. They were mostly on the defensive and had very limited means of counterattack. Fang Heng narrowed his eyes and examined the orb creatures. So it was a spatial ability. The orb creatures could rapidly enter and exit from secondary space projections, maintaining high-speed movement while attacking the Eastern Federation players, making them hard to guard against. It appeared to be another trial zone. But this one corresponded to spatial power. Even such rare forces as spatial science appeared here. Fang Heng pondered to himself, his gaze falling upon the ice crystal pillar at the center of the hall. Great Sage, look over there. Whiteman pointed not far away. A group of players who had entered from the right passage of the ice crystal trial tried to bypass the monsters, already engaged with Chen Yu's Western District Federation team, by sticking close to the wall and slowly making their way forward, evading the orb creatures and exiting the hall. Fang Heng looked down at the key hanging on his chest. The Key of Heaven enlightenment was pointing forward. So that group of players had chosen to go around. Great Sage, shall we? While the Holy Court observed the Eastern Federation team, the latter also noticed their presence. Eastern Federation team leader Yi Qingzi felt a rising sense of dread. The Holy Court had always been at odds with the Eastern Federation, mainly due to matters of faith. The Eastern Federation had little tolerance for any organized religion and had repeatedly rejected the Holy Court's efforts to spread its faith. Yi Qingzi didn't expect the Holy Court to offer help. He only hoped they wouldn't make things worse. But the Holy Court simply stood there watching and didn't leave. Already struggling against spatial-type creatures, the Eastern Federation players now also had the added psychological pressure of the Holy Court watching nearby. Chapter 3000, the Shendu happened to be in the team as well. His strength was at the bottom among the entire team, so he was protected by everyone in the central position and didn't immediately see that the newcomer was Feng Heng. Yi Qingzi tentatively said, "Friends from the Holy Court, if you can help us try to break through these spatial creatures from the periphery, please be very careful and don't approach casually. These things are extremely difficult to deal with. If you get too close, you might get trapped in the central area just like us." Whiteman naturally did not dare to make decisions and just looked at Feng Heng. "Understood, I'll lead you out now." Feng Heng noticed Shendu and lightly nodded. He said to Whiteman and the others beside him, "You all stay here and wait for me." The Holy Court believers respectfully nodded and did not find any problem. Yes, great sage. Great sages were people who could single-handedly defeat disasters. How could dealing with these spatial creatures not be easy? Huh? Shendu was stunned hearing the voice. Looking again at the person's face covered by a mask, he suddenly shouted joyfully, "Boss Feng? Feng Heng?" Yi Qingzi's heart skipped a beat hearing Shendu's call and also looked at the masked young man. Who else could be called Boss Feng by Shendu besides Feng Heng? Was it really Feng Heng? The one who helped the Eastern Federation build the fleet? Yi Qingzi felt a sudden respect. But when did he get involved with the Holy Court? And judging from the positions here, the Holy Court people seemed to follow Feng Heng unquestioningly. Whoosh! Yi Qingzi was still somewhat confused and uncertain, but Feng Heng lightly tapped his toe on the ground and moved toward the central area. The speed was neither fast nor slow. What? Directly coming over? Yi Qingzi anxiously shouted, "Be careful." It was already too late. The next moment, Feng Heng approached the central region of the hall, and more than 10 spatial light spots flickered repeatedly beside him. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Orb-like bodies jumped out from the spatial light spots, rushing at Feng Heng from all angles. Bang! The orb bodies attacking Feng Heng exploded with a dull sound in midair. No one saw exactly how Feng Heng struck, only saw the orbs explode into a mist of blood right before reaching him. Bang! Bang bang bang! For a while, continuous explosions sounded one after another. What the hell? In the stunned gaze of everyone, almost all the orb creatures rushing at Feng Heng exploded into blood mist after a boom midair. From the blood mist flowed strands of spatial energy that entered Feng Heng's sea of consciousness. Feng Heng made no other moves and ignored the constantly exploding blood mist around him, still stepping forward toward the hall center. The Holy Court people stood behind, looking at Feng Heng with reverent eyes. Although shocked in their hearts, it was not so surprising since they had already seen some of the great sage's strength on the way. But the Eastern Federation elite team was truly amazed. The elite team had been forced onto the defensive in the hall center for more than 20 minutes by the orb creatures, still unable to find a way out, yet they now saw Feng Heng approach so casually. That guy's strength was really terrifying. Also, it seemed Feng Heng's combat method was completely different from the Holy Court's usual ways. Feng Heng paid no attention to the eyes around him. He felt these monsters were too simple to deal with. The spatial fluctuation caused by spatial transmission was too large, easily detected by his perception, allowing him to calculate attack angles in advance and detonate the enemy's blood. Pure attribute crushing power. Feng Heng cleared the orb creatures on his way, passing by the Eastern Federation elite team directly, and reached the stone pillar in the hall center. He reached out his hand and lightly pressed on the stone pillar. Buzz. Immediately, a dense spatial power flowed from the pillar into his palm, then rapidly drilled into his sea of consciousness. It came. Spatial energy. Compared with elemental energy and natural energy, spatial energy was very rare. He absorbed it all in one breath. Whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. The energy of the ice crystal pillar was absorbed by Feng Heng, instantly enraging all the orb creatures in the hall. They swarmed out densely from the secondary space projection, attacking Feng Heng. Bang. Bang bang bang. The same as before. All those approaching Feng Heng were instantly blasted into blood mist. This lasted for more than 3 minutes. Until all the energy inside the altar was absorbed, Feng Heng finally lowered his hand. At the same time, all the orb creatures in the hall were completely wiped out, and the hall fell silent. Yi Qingzi took a deep breath and carefully led the Eastern Federation group to Feng Heng. "Thank you, Mr. Feng, for your assistance." Yi Qingzi observed Feng Heng, full of suspicion in his heart. Feng Heng's appearance had changed a lot, and he was mixed with the Holy Court people. Weren't they enemies? "I am not Feng Heng," Feng Heng waved his hand and said while glancing at Chen Yu beside him, "You can call me Feng Bei. You can also call me Boss Feng like him." Yi Qingzi raised his eyebrows upon hearing this, many thoughts flashing through his mind, and nodded. "I understand, Boss Feng. Thank you for your help." At that moment, Archbishop Whiteman also arrived with the Holy Court group. Seeing Chen Yu's dusty, dejected look, Feng Heng asked, "What happened?" "Don't mention it. We were tricked by the Southern Federation people." Chen Yu smiled helplessly and began to complain. "When we arrived, the Southern Federation people were fighting the spatial creatures. They invited us to assist. Unexpectedly, they used their skills to escape halfway, leaving us trapped here." Yi Qingzi waved his hand to stop Chen Yu from continuing and looked at Feng Heng. "Boss Feng, let's discuss this later. The Western District Federation people have already been inside for some time. The Enlightenment treasure may fall into their hands at any moment. Let's catch up with them first." "All right." The group did not delay and continued to follow the direction indicated by the Key of Heaven Enlightenment. Soon, after passing through the spatial trial hall, they entered another short maze domain. The ice crystal ground became open again. The entire icy surface widened, looking like a plane at first glance. They followed the plane ice surface forward. Soon, within eyesight, a huge metal door nearly 7 meters tall stood on the ice crystal wall at the end. From a distance, many people gathered in front of the gate entrance. The Key of Heaven Enlightenment pointed directly at the central metal door. "Huh?" Feng Heng frowned. A familiar energy ripple flowed from the gap of the metal door. "Let's go take a look." Feng Heng, together with the Eastern Federation and Holy Court group, arrived outside the metal door at the end of the ice plane. Chapter 3001, Resurrection. The metal door had not fully closed, leaving a very narrow crack. A surge of elite energy aura seeped out from the rift in the door. Hundreds of players had already gathered on the ice outside the metal door. They were all sitting cross-legged, absorbing the aura that leaked from within. This strength. So familiar. Titan. Feng Heng immediately remembered. This familiar power was the Titan bloodline. Why was it here? Was the treasure of the Land of Enlightenment the Titan bloodline? Feng Heng immediately closed his eyes and attempted to absorb the energy leaking from the metal door. Hint: the player is awakening their bloodline. Hint: current bloodline awakening progress, 7.16%. Hint: due to bloodline awakening, the player gained 0.1 foundation physique, as expected. No wonder he had felt something familiar when absorbing spatial, elemental, and natural energies before. This strength, like the Titan bloodline, could be temporarily stored in the Sea of Consciousness. After confirming the energy source, Feng Heng opened his eyes and looked at the people around him. Everyone's face showed a heavy expression. Central Federation's Roa and his group noticed the arrival of the Holy Court's Archbishop and the Eastern Federation members. He immediately stepped forward, saying, "Archbishop Whiteman, it's great that you returned safely. What about the disaster? Thank you for your concern, it's been dealt with." Whiteman extended his hand to introduce, "This is the great sage of our Holy Court's Holy Realm, Mr. Feng Bei. Thanks to the great sage's intervention in helping us repel the monsters, we managed to escape and come here." Feng Bei. Roa's pupils suddenly contracted as he looked at the young man behind Whiteman. It was rumored that every great sage of the Holy Realm possessed terrifying power. It made sense that he could repel the disaster. Roa cautiously observed Feng Heng, then glanced at the Eastern Federation's people nearby, trying to discern their relationship. He nodded and bowed slightly. "Great sage, a pleasure to meet you. I'm Roa, the mission leader of the Central Federation this time. Thank you for your help." Feng Heng looked toward the metal door and asked, "What's going on here?" "It's the Southern Federation's doing." Roa took a deep breath, his gaze shifting to the players guarding the metal door, and said, "We suspect that the Enlightenment treasure is behind the door. When we arrived, the Southern Federation had already occupied the area and blocked our access to the Great Hall. According to them, they were the first to find the treasure. Their members are currently cultivating in the Great Hall, and any disturbance would disrupt their state. That's why they're stopping others from entering." Chen Yu, standing to the side, grew even more furious after hearing this. These people are rotten to the core. If not for the Southern Federation's betrayal, their team would have been the first to arrive at the treasure. Now they were monopolizing the energy pool for cultivation and wouldn't let anyone else in? Feng Heng sneered and said, "What? You have so many people, and you're still afraid of the Southern Federation? It's not that simple." Roa explained in a low voice, "These players are all on the danger list. We know their strength, but during a recent encounter, we realize their strength has transformed. It's highly likely they mutated after coming into contact with the treasure. Their power surged in a short time. We didn't take action because we're trying to avoid escalating conflict among the federations. Now." That made things even more interesting. Feng Heng looked at the players gathered at the door, his eyes showing a hint of intrigue. He interrupted, "If the federations don't want to make a move, then let me do it." Feng Heng didn't care about the Southern Federation or any so-called diplomatic conflicts. Now that he was here, was he supposed to sit outside and eat scraps? What a joke. When had he ever endured such treatment? With that, Feng Heng led the Holy Court people toward the front. Yi Qingzi from the Eastern Federation and Roa from the Central Federation exchanged a glance, quickly sharing a silent understanding. They immediately signaled their subordinates to follow Feng Heng. At this moment, the other players gathered at the metal door also noticed the movement from the Federation teams. They stopped absorbing energy and prepared to watch. Maybe they could get involved and benefit too. In the Western team, Augustine from the Federation saw Feng Heng appearing with the Eastern Federation and felt a jolt in his heart. Feng Heng was here too. The entire Western Federation knew about Feng Heng's terrifying strength. Lately, he had even formed a fleet in the game. He didn't even care about the major allied forces of the Spawns, let alone the Southern Federation. Augustine sensed something exciting was about to happen. He signaled his team to stay alert and prepare to move with Feng Heng. Stop! The players guarding the entrance from the Southern Federation had been on high alert and immediately raised their hands to block Feng Heng's group. Feng Heng looked at them coldly and said, "What do you mean by this?" "Everyone, as we've said, our members are currently undergoing trials inside the Great Hall. If others enter, it will disrupt their process. Please wait in line. When our people finish, your turn will come." "Oh really? And what if I think your rule is unreasonable and don't want to follow it?" The Southern Federation guard saw the intimidating aura of Feng Heng's group and knew that words alone wouldn't drive them away. If they couldn't handle the first troublemaker, things would only get worse. "You're asking for death." One of the Southern Federation guards shouted and lunged at Feng Heng. "Kill one to warn the rest. Strike quickly to intimidate the others." Whoosh! Lawrence stepped forward half a pace, his war blade slicing out a silver arc. Bang! The blade light exploded in midair with a loud crash. Everyone clearly saw Lawrence being sent flying at an even faster speed, crashing hard into the metal door behind him. Dark golden cracks, like spiderwebs, appeared across his skin. Feng Heng gave Lawrence a cold glance. Power surge. It seemed related to that dark golden protective layer on his skin. But that was all. Their base strength was far too low. The guards standing beside Lawrence were stunned. Seeing Feng Heng blow Lawrence away with a single punch, they didn't dare move forward. Lawrence's strength had surged after absorbing energy from the Key of Heaven enlightenment. But compared to this terrifying guy, he wasn't worth mentioning. Attack! Stop him! Just as the remaining guards shouted whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! Several massive black shadows suddenly burst from the crack in the metal door behind the Southern Federation guards, charging straight at Feng Heng with thunderous footsteps echoing across the ice. Chapter 3002, Concentration. What was that? Puppet creatures. Feng Heng focused his gaze on several puppet creatures. They looked like some kind of rock puppets, twice the size of an average human. They appeared bulky, but their movement speed wasn't affected at all. Whoosh! A rock puppet swung a heavy punch toward Feng Heng. HMPH! Feng Heng flipped his wrist. A great holy sword appeared in his hand, and he countered with a swift strike. Boom! The massive fist of the rock puppet slammed into Feng Heng's great holy sword. After a brief pause, the entire rock puppet shattered with a loud explosion. What? The players from the Southern Region Federation turned pale instantly, their eyes filled with shock as they looked at Feng Heng. He had destroyed a rock puppet with a single strike. They had experienced the strength of the rock puppets firsthand, requiring the full effort of their entire team to take one down. Yet this unknown player had crushed it with a single blow. Whoosh! Before the Western District Federation players could react, Feng Heng tapped his toes lightly on the ground and quickly dealt with the remaining rock puppets. Bang! Bang bang! A shadow flickered repeatedly across the Ice Crystal Plaza. Wherever it passed, the rock puppet giants were shattered into pieces. In just a few moments, Feng Heng reappeared, his figure visible again, casting a cold glance at the players from the Southern Region Federation. Their faces turned deathly pale. What a terrifying guy. Who was he really? Feng Heng had no time to bother with the Southern Region Federation. Seeing that they no longer blocked his way, he ignored them and walked through the ruins of the rock puppets, pushing open a metal door and stepping inside. Behind the metal door was a giant-sized temple hall. A dark golden light illuminated every corner of the temple. At the center of the hall, a glowing orb of energy floated in the air, continuously radiating power ripples outward. The high-frequency, high-quality energy ripples carried a scorching soul intensity, making it hard to approach. The group of Southern Region Federation players who had entered the hall earlier were sitting cross-legged near the outer circle of the orb, eyes closed in meditation, appearing to be absorbing the power emitted by the orb. Ha! The Southern Region Federation did plan to monopolize the power of the Enlightenment treasure. No wonder they had blocked the others from entering the temple. The players who followed Feng Heng into the Great Hall quickly realized the situation and, without bothering with the Western District Federation anymore, sat down cross-legged and began cultivating, trying to absorb the orb's energy. Feng Heng focused his gaze on the central energy orb. He sensed a gentle power coming from it. Titan bloodline power. Feng Heng tried to approach the orb step by step, feeling an increasingly strong pressure and rejection from the space ahead. The closer he got, the stronger the repelling force became. The orb's power was strong. But compared to the God Orb of the Holy Realm and the Death Orb of the Death Realm, it still fell far short. Archbishop Whiteman noticed Feng Heng moving closer to the orb and softly reminded him, "Great Sage." Feng Heng gave a slight nod, stopping in his tracks, staring at the orb as a realization dawned on him. Not long ago, in the ruins of the ancient humans, a sacrificial stone pillar had been discovered. The pillar had fragments of energy embedded into it like tiny stars. Now, it seemed those fragments resembled pieces of a shattered orb. No matter. Better to absorb it first. Feng Heng immediately sat down cross-legged, closed his eyes in meditation, and opened his senses to absorb the energy. In an instant, the scorching energy from the orb surged toward Feng Heng like a whale swallowing water. The power was rapidly absorbed into his body and quickly flowed into his sea of consciousness. At the same time, a special imprint on the back of Feng Heng's hand emitted a faint glow. The energy was awakening the ancient Titan bloodline hidden in his body. Hint: the player's current bloodline concentration, 10.2%. Hint: the player's current bloodline concentration, 10.76%. The energy released by the complete orb was thousands of times greater than the energy found during the exploration of the ancient humans' ruins. Fine, then he would absorb it all. Raise the bloodline concentration as high as possible. Feng Heng fully opened his perception and absorbed the energy with all his might. Immediately, a visible energy vortex began to form above Feng Heng's head. Most of the energy spilling out from the orb was drawn into Feng Heng. The players sitting around the outer circle and absorbing energy felt something was wrong and quickly opened their eyes, turning to look at Feng Heng. The Eastern Federation had always maintained a cooperative attitude with Feng Heng. Seeing his subordinates glancing at him, Leader Yi Qingzi frowned and gave a cold snort. "What? You think there's too much energy? Then keep cultivating and absorbing more." The Eastern Federation players said no more and closed their eyes to continue cultivating. Although Feng Heng absorbed the majority of the energy, the remaining portion was still more than enough for them. The Western District Federation team, led by Augustine, exchanged bitter glances. They all knew how terrifying Feng Heng was and didn't dare to speak up, closing their eyes and pretending not to see. Better to keep absorbing while there was still some left. Given the tension between them and Mr. Feng, they wouldn't get anything otherwise. The Central Federation team appeared conflicted. Archbishop Whiteman of the Holy Court positioned his people to guard Feng Heng, clearly warning others not to approach. The Central Federation had a cooperative relationship with the Holy Court, so they felt awkward about intervening directly. But for the Great Sage to absorb almost all the energy from the Temple Orb alone, wasn't that a bit much? Players from the Southern and Northern Federations opened their eyes and began to approach Feng Heng. There was only so much energy. If he took it all, what would be left for them? Seeing this, Archbishop Whiteman and his group immediately stepped in front of the meditating Feng Heng. A player from the Southern Federation said coldly, "Step aside." Whiteman stared at them coldly and replied, "It is you who should step aside. If you disturb the Great Sage's cultivation, you will be enemies of the entire Holy Court." The crowd's expressions changed at those words. Although the Holy Court's recent performance against the undead had been poor and its reputation among players had plummeted, none of the federations dared to underestimate Feng Heng. The Holy Court was weak? That only applied to the undead faction. The Holy Court had been collaborating with the Central Federation for years, with deep roots in the human world. Offending the Holy Court meant facing thousands upon thousands of its devout followers. Archbishop Whiteman stared coldly at the group and said in a deep voice, "I will say it one last time. Stand down." Chapter 3003, Awakening. The crowd hesitated upon seeing this and looked at each other. Dorian, the commander of the Southern Region Federation team, took a deep breath and clenched his fists. Among the various federations, the Southern Region Federation had always been relatively weak. This time, they had finally managed to be the first to discover the Enlightenment treasure and were on the verge of obtaining power and gaining some influence. They hadn't expected the appearance of some so-called Great Sage of the Holy Court. Screw it. This might be the best chance for the Southern Region Federation to rise again. Dorian secretly signaled his trusted subordinate. The subordinate understood immediately, stepped forward, and shouted angrily, "HMPH! The power of the Land of Enlightenment belongs to all humanity. What does it have to do with your Holy Court? If the Holy Court wants to monopolize this power, that's nothing but wishful thinking." As soon as he finished speaking, a loud shout came. So noisy. The previously arrogant and aggressive subordinate felt the voice explode beside his ears. The blood in his body surged uncontrollably, and he spat out a mouthful of blood before flying backward and slamming heavily into the wall behind him, completely passing out. Everyone's expressions changed instantly. Terrifying strength. No one had even seen how Feng Heng had made a move. Feng Heng opened his eyes and swept a cold gaze across the crowd. The enlightenment treasure is right here. How much you get depends on your own abilities. Don't think a little trick can influence me. That was just a warning. If you dare step closer, your end will be death. Upon hearing this, the players from the Western District Federation immediately looked extremely grim. A direct threat. Yet the opponent was overwhelmingly strong, and they had no confidence in winning. Feng Heng closed his eyes again. Visibly, energy ripples once again condensed into a vortex above Feng Heng's head and were rapidly absorbed into his body. The members of the North District Federation saw this and said no more, decisively retreating. Fine. The situation was stronger than them. What else could they do? Backing off now might still let them get a bit of the spoils. If they pushed forward rashly, they might end up with nothing. The Western District Federation members remained where they were, glaring angrily at Feng Heng, their hearts filled with rage. They had clearly arrived first and gained the trust of the Titan God. Yet Feng Heng had snatched it away. We're leaving. Dorian knew they couldn't win and didn't force it. He picked up his heavily injured subordinate and quickly retreated. Archbishop Whiteman looked toward the group from the Western District Federation, surprised to see them not staying in the temple hall but retreating toward the entrance. They left? So decisively. Even if they didn't dare fight, they didn't need to leave entirely. Wouldn't it be better to stay and absorb energy? Whiteman turned his head to glance at Feng Heng, who was still cultivating. The great sage showed no signs of anomaly and continued his cultivation. With the great sage's omniscience and omnipotence, he had probably already foreseen everything. All Whiteman needed to do was follow instructions. Whiteman shook his head, withdrew his gaze from the Western District Federation group, and continued guarding Feng Heng's side. In truth, Feng Heng had predicted that no one would dare act, so when he closed his eyes again, he focused all his spirit on absorbing energy. His perception of the outside world had dropped to the minimum, and he didn't even notice the movements of the Western District Federation. The energy condensed outside his body into a vortex above his head, which was rapidly absorbed into his body and flowed inward, tempering his bloodline. Feng Heng was immersed in energy absorption. He didn't know how much time had passed when lines of game notifications appeared on his retina. Hint: the player has fully absorbed the imprint power. Hint: the player's current bloodline concentration has increased to 100%. Hint: the player's hidden ability Unknown Imprint has now awakened. Hint: Unknown Imprint has fused with Skill Titan Bloodline, Skill Titan Ancient Bloodline, Level, Max, Root Bloodline cannot evolve. Cannot level up. Description: Inheritor of the Ancient Titan Bloodline. The Titan race are wanderers and explorers among the stars. Besides possessing great strength, they have mastery over various abilities and can proficiently use powers, including natural science, psychic, and elemental disciplines. Bloodline additional skill: Erudite Wanderer. Skill description: when the player enters any world, their environmental adaptability increases by 1000%. Bloodline additional skill: Academic Unification, Pseudo. Skill description: during their travels, the ancient Titan race studied various academic skills and attempted to unify all academic powers. In the Titan's view, all forms of power are essentially the same and can be mutually transformed. To achieve this, the Titans refined and developed the use of Chi, but this academic system is not yet complete. Skill effect: reduces 50% of additional academic learning penalties. The player can convert various academic energies into Chi and vice versa. Energy conversion will result in additional loss depending on level and form differences. Since this academic system is not fully established, some energies cannot be converted. Bloodline special additional skill: Titan Clan Imprint, Scholar Branch Imprint. Skill description: when the player enters any world, they will not suffer additional special penalties from that world. The player gains increased efficiency in absorbing world energy and can store a portion of energy in the imprint, gaining an extra 50 points in all base attributes. Whoosh! Feng Heng suddenly opened his eyes. Titan Bloodline. It seemed the Eastern Federation's research on ancient humans was correct. Humans were a branch of the ancient Titan Bloodline. And the Titan skills looked quite promising. During the process of condensing and completing his bloodline, all his basic attributes had increased by 50 points. For him, that might not be much, but for an ordinary player, it would be a qualitative leap. Feng Heng reopened the skill descriptions and studied them closely. The bloodline granted 3 skills. First was the increase in world adaptability, which had little effect on him. Second was academic unification. A great skill. Feng Heng carefully read the skill description several times to confirm the effect. It reduced penalties for learning multiple academic disciplines. He already studied many academic disciplines. With a 50% penalty reduction from the skill and another reduction from academic integration, the combined total reached an 87% reduction in penalties. Additionally, what did it mean to convert academic energy into chi? Chi seemed to be an attribute-less energy developed by the Titan race. What did that imply? For example, could necromantic energy be converted into holy energy? Feng Heng quickly tried it and found that he had no chi energy within him. He couldn't figure it out. Then there was the final skill, Titan Clan Imprint. The special imprint on the back of his hand. Feng Heng hadn't known its origin before and thought it might have been a special item left by Zai or an inherent special ability of his body. Now it seemed the imprint was also a product of the ancient Titan race. Chapter 3004, Transformation. Based on this, it was indeed possible that the imprint had been left on Feng Heng by Zai to cultivate the newborn of the seed of Ouroboros. In any case, the imprint was a good thing and had already been integrated into the Titan bloodline. What he didn't know was whether the Titan race had other similar imprints that could be absorbed. Feng Heng pondered for a moment and then quickly pulled his drifting thoughts back. No time to think about that now. There was still a large amount of residual energy in the temple hall. He would absorb all the energy bodies first and study them slowly later. Whoosh! Feng Heng once again activated his mental strength, drawing the energy in the Great Hall into his body. Huh? This time, Feng Heng quickly noticed something strange. The aura absorbed earlier in the Great Hall had directly fused into his body and started to transform his bloodline, enhancing the ancient Titan bloodline. But now, the energy flowing into his body quickly entered his sea of consciousness and lingered there. A special type of energy, without any attributes. A thought suddenly rose in Feng Heng's mind. Could this attribute-less energy be chi? That's it. According to Titan energy theories, this attribute-less chi could be converted into all other elemental energies, and vice versa. Feng Heng tried to convert the chi into holy attribute energy. No good. He couldn't do it. The chi simply couldn't be converted. What was going wrong? Feng Heng frowned. No matter, the entire hall was shrouded in chi energy. He didn't care how chi was used for now. He was sure it was something valuable, so he would absorb it all first. Whoosh! Under Feng Heng's mental strength, the central orb in the Great Hall burst out with even more dazzling brilliance. In an instant, the energy released from the orb increased tenfold. Absorb. Feng Heng didn't notice that, while he was closing his eyes to concentrate and absorb the chi, more and more player teams were entering the Great Hall. Another team from the Eastern Federation had also entered the Great Hall, guided by the Key of Heaven's enlightenment. Li Zixuan, one of the researchers, happened to be in this team. Unlike the others, Li Zixuan focused her gaze on the layout and decorations of the Great Hall. A trace of surprise flashed in Li Zixuan's eyes, and then her expression became solemn. At the same time, the group from the Southern Federation had left the main temple and entered a hidden side hall on the plains. In fact, when the Southern Federation first followed the guidance into the temple's main gate had been closed. So they searched nearby and found the hidden side hall. At the very center of the side hall, on a tall stone seat, a giant nearly 5 meters tall sat with his eyes closed. His body seemed to have fused with the stone, making it hard to tell whether he was a statue. Ancestor. Dorian led the players of the Southern Federation into the Great Hall, walked up to the stone statue, and immediately knelt to kowtow. The stone statue slowly awakened, layers of rock falling away from its surface as it opened its eyes. What's the matter? Ancestor, a group of people forcibly entered the Guardian Sanctuary left behind by you. They ignored all protocols, destroyed the Titan Guardian statue you left behind, and barged into the Great Hall to absorb energy. They even drove us out. The players from the Southern Federation all knelt and kowtowed repeatedly, adding embellishments to their report. The Titan Ancestor Guardian listened to their account, and a trace of anger appeared on his face. Is that so? The ancient Guardian had been in a petrified state for so long that he had forgotten how much time had passed, and his memory was a bit hazy. His purpose for remaining here was to protect and pass on the inheritance. If someone were trying to destroy the Titan inheritance. Unforgivable. Take me there. Dorian was immediately overjoyed and respectfully replied, Yes, Ancestor. Temple of Heavenly Enlightenment. The orb floating in the center of the hall was releasing waves of scorching aura visible to the naked eye. Most of the aura released from the orb immediately gathered above Feng Heng's head, forming a vortex and rapidly being absorbed into his body. The other players retreated from Feng Heng and formed a circle around the periphery of the temple, absorbing the remaining energy. Ka. The players heard the sound of the metal doors opening again and the heavy footsteps coming from behind, and they all opened their eyes. What kind of monster was that? Was it human? At the entrance of the Great Hall, the Southern Federation players had returned. Following behind them was a giant 5 meters tall. He appeared very similar to a human in appearance, but his size was more than double, and he looked incredibly muscular. A Titan? The members of the Eastern Federation exchanged glances quickly and looked toward Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan gave a slight nod. The Eastern Federation had been the first to begin research on the Titans and had the deepest understanding of them. From the various pieces of information gathered, this giant was very likely a Titan ancestor. All previous speculations were finally confirmed upon seeing the Titan in person. Dorian quickly scanned the surroundings and said in a cold voice, "This is the ancestor of humanity, the Titan Guardian. Aren't you going to pay your respects?" The players from various federations and small teams looked at each other in confusion. Titan? Ancestor? What kind of trick was the Southern Federation trying to pull? The Titan Guardian stepped into the temple and fixed his gaze on Feng Heng in the center of the Great Hall. A look of divine surprise appeared in the Titan Guardian's eyes. This inheritor. Very unusual. He was actually able to activate the power of the Origin Light Orb? Had he already completed his bloodline awakening? But how could he still absorb so much chi? And at such a terrifying speed, wasn't he afraid his sea of consciousness would burst? The Titan slowly spoke, "Stop." Feng Heng sensed the presence of outsiders and stopped absorbing the chi for now. He opened his eyes and turned around to look at the Titan Guardian. "Young one, your ability is impressive. You surprise me." Feng Heng raised his head without fear and looked at the Titan Guardian. He asked, "And who are you?" "I am the guardian of this place, a Titan. I came to this world to protect the branch of the Titan bloodline, to ensure your safety, and to guard the land of enlightenment until you have the strength to protect yourselves." The Titan stared intently at Feng Heng and said in a deep voice, "You destroyed the guardian statue here, oppressed your kin to absorb power. You are not suitable to remain here. I need you to leave now." Feng Heng curled his lip and cast a cold glance at the Southern Federation group. "Destroyed the guardian statue? Oppressed kin? Did they tell you that?" Dorian's face flushed, and he immediately said, "Guardian, no need to waste words with him. He seeks to destroy our inheritance and intends to use the faith of the Holy Court to enslave us. Please, Guardian, strike him down." Chapter 3005, Guardian? What did you say? The power of faith? The Titan Guardian's eyes showed some confusion as he looked at the few Holy Court players standing in front of Feng Heng. The Archbishop Whiteman, who was targeted by the Titan Guardian, suddenly felt an immense pressure pressing down on him, causing his face to turn pale and even making it extremely difficult to breathe. Buzz. Sensing the danger, his Divine Holy Shield naturally activated. Oh? The Titan Guardian saw the Divine Holy Shield appear and his eyes revealed a bit of confusion. He paused for a moment, as if trying to understand something, then spoke with some sighing, "So this is a clumsy imitation of the gods. Humans, you have taken the wrong path. This is not the direction the Titan race should go." Bang. Bang bang bang. The Titan Guardian gently raised a finger and pointed forward. The shields condensed around Archbishop Whiteman and the others shattered, and they spat out mouthfuls of blood, staggering backwards. The onlookers immediately changed their expressions. The Archbishop of the Holy Court was severely injured by the Titan's simple movements. The Titan Guardian's gaze was indifferent. "Is this how you gained your strength? Such a pity. To seek power through the wrong faith, even attacking your own kind, you shame the bloodline within you. You are not suitable to remain in this world." Eastern Federation leader Yi Qingzi saw this and immediately said, "Ancestor Titan. It's not like that. Mr. Feng," he silenced. "No need to explain. Breaking the seal is an unforgivable offense." The Titan moved his finger lightly to point at Archbishop Whiteman in front of Feng Heng. Whoosh! An invisible ripple burst from the fingertip. Whiteman, already injured internally and suppressed by the Titan's pressure, was completely immobilized and could only feel a terrifying spiritual energy rushing toward him. Bang! In the next moment, the spiritual energy exploded before Whiteman. The shock wave blew back at him and the surrounding Holy Court players, making them momentarily unable to open their eyes. When the shock wave finally dispersed, the Holy Court players felt the pressure lift and gasped for fresh air. Looking up, they saw Feng Heng standing firmly in front of them, shielding them from the Titan's attack. Great sage. Archbishop Whiteman felt like he had narrowly escaped death and bowed deeply to Feng Heng. If not for Feng Heng's intervention, they would have died from the previous blow. "Step back." Feng Heng left the words behind and looked up at the Titan Guardian, coldly asking, "You claim to be the human ancestor Titan. What proof do you have?" The Titan Guardian gazed at Feng Heng with some surprise, clearly not expecting him to withstand the strike. Hearing Feng Heng's question, he frowned and asked, "What proof do you need?" "Hey," Feng Heng's expression turned serious, killing intent rising from his body. "If you want to be my ancestor, survive my hands first." Whoosh! Feng Heng lightly tapped the ground with his toe and rapidly leapt toward the Titan Guardian. Human ancestor? HMPH. Let's first test your strength. The crowd inside the Great Hall was shocked. Feng Heng was so reckless. No matter how terrifying the giant's strength was, claiming to be a human ancestor Titan, Feng Heng dared to attack first. Eastern Federation leader Yi Qingzi frowned tightly, staring fixedly at Feng Heng. He was crazy. Based on all the intelligence collected by the Eastern Federation, this giant could only be the human ancestor Titan. Feng Heng should also be sure of this. Record said the Titan was once the largest tribe in the universe. Extremely powerful. What was this guy trying to do? Augustine from the Southern Federation, knowing Feng Heng's strength, hurriedly signaled his team to step back and move toward the metal door, ready to retreat at any moment. These two gods were fighting, better stay far away from them. Whoosh! Feng Heng rushed forward, the great holy sword appearing in his hand, heavily striking the Titan Guardian's petrified body with a dull boom. Bang! The spreading holy ripple immediately caused a secondary explosion on the Titan Guardian's body. The blinding light from the holy ripple made the players bow their heads to avoid it. When they looked up again, the Titan looked completely unharmed. No damage? The Titan Guardian seemed entirely unaffected. Suddenly, he raised his right hand. Boom. A muffled sound. The crowd in the Great Hall couldn't see how the Titan Guardian swung his palm, only hearing a heavy thud, then saw Feng Heng's divine holy shield instantly shatter. From the exploding holy light burst a mist of blood. Feng Heng's whole body was covered in blood as he was slapped and flew backward. Not good. Archbishop Whiteman's heart tightened. Completely outmatched? No. Everyone was surprised to see that Feng Heng, though thrown far, did not lose control of his body. He quickly found his footing, leapt a few times on the ground to dissipate the impact, and adjusted his posture. Though looking miserable and blood-soaked, he had not lost his combat strength. Look, on the Titan's body. Someone suddenly whispered in surprise. The crowd looked up at the Titan. Where Feng Heng's holy sword had struck, the stone-like statue's surface showed cracks like a spider web filled with golden veins. The Titan Guardian looked at Feng Heng with disbelief in his eyes. The human inheritor's power. He could harm his body? Whoosh! Before the Titan Guardian could think further, Feng Heng rushed at him again. This time, the Titan Guardian was not relaxed. His perception locked tightly onto Feng Heng, and he raised his right hand in advance. Whoosh! The players were stunned. Feng Heng suddenly vanished into secondary space projection while charging forward. Ho! The Titan Guardian seemed to see Feng Heng's secondary space projection clearly and swung his right hand, twisting his body and slapping hard to his right side. Bang! A loud explosion. Feng Heng was sent flying backward once again by a slap from the Titan, blasted out of the secondary space projection, as a mist of blood burst from his body. What the hell? The players gasped. That was secondary space projection. Feng Heng had already entered secondary space projection but was still hit by the Titan Guardian's slap from inside the spatial projection. The Titan could strike through secondary space projections. Bang! Feng Heng was thrown, his back heavily crashing against the ice barrier behind him. After landing, he quickly supported himself with his hands and stood up, a cold smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 3006, Defeating the Enemy. Interesting. The opponent had used some kind of spatial ability, and was actually able to launch an attack on him within the secondary space projection. Even though it looked like a normal slap, the Titan Guardian possessed extremely powerful abilities in spatial science. If not for the undead effect, he probably would have been seriously injured from those two slaps just now. But the Guardian probably wasn't unscathed either, right? At that moment, the Titan Guardian also noticed something wrong. He lowered his head and opened his palm to take a look. A spiderweb-like crack had appeared in the center of his palm. It had looked like he held the upper hand by slapping Feng Heng away with a single strike, but in truth, he had sensed something unusual the moment his palm struck. It had felt as though he was slapping a nail. The Titan Guardian's expression grew extremely grave. He extended a finger and gently pointed toward Feng Heng. The palm had just struck Feng Heng, but was already rapidly recovering thanks to the undead state. As he was about to launch his next attack, he suddenly felt his body being suppressed by an invisible force. Oh? Psychic? If that's the case. Feng Heng's pupils suddenly contracted. Boom. A burst of aura exploded from Feng Heng's body. A dense magic array appeared beneath his feet, and as a thick black fog spilled out of the array, vines and branches began rapidly growing and gathering around him. Eternal Tree Realm. Whoosh. With his full strength erupting and the ripple released by summoning the Eternal Tree Realm, Feng Heng swiftly broke free from the psychic suppression. His figure transformed into a dark blur and charged toward the Titan Guardian. The surrounding players turned pale at the sight. Such a powerful aura ripple. If earlier the two were contesting in melee combat, they were now battling through magic. Berserk vines quickly spread across the area surrounding Feng Heng. A clash between gods. Ordinary people didn't dare approach, and they immediately retreated. The Titan Guardian, seeing the rapidly growing vines gathering around Feng Heng, realized the psychic suppression had failed. A surge of intense caution rose in his heart. He suddenly opened his huge mouth. Roar! Blazing molten lava spewed from the Titan's mouth. The temperature of the entire trial environment rose sharply in an instant. Under the impact of the erupting lava, the vines converging on the Titan were instantly incinerated to ash. Whoosh! Feng Heng's main body flashed quickly, dodging the flames from the side. The Titan Guardian had already locked on to Feng Heng's aura with his perception. He raised his right arm into the air, tracking Feng Heng's movement path. Hyuga! His massive palm once again swept toward Feng Heng. Swish! What? The Titan Guardian's pupils suddenly shook violently. Feng Heng's speed had suddenly increased to an abnormal level midair, and he slipped right through the Titan's descending palm. Year-ring acceleration. Boom! Feng Heng, wielding the Great Holy Sword, slammed into the Titan Guardian's massive body with a tremendous impact. Combined with the speed boost from Year-ring, it produced a heavy boom upon collision. The great sword carved a deep mark into the Titan Guardian's body. Dark golden spiderweb cracks spread outward from the impact point across a large section of his body. Boom! A secondary ripple effect burst forth from the Great Holy Sword, detonating on the Titan Guardian's body. The Titan, struck repeatedly, actually staggered and swayed, stepping back unsteadily. HMPH. Landing a hit, Feng Heng's lips curled into a cold sneer. Human ancestor? Titan? Nothing special. Whoosh! Before the Titan Guardian could regain balance, Feng Heng's figure suddenly vanished from the player's side again. This time, it wasn't entering secondary space projection. Under the effect of Year-ring acceleration, the player's eyes could no longer keep up with Feng Heng's speed. Bang! Bang! In an instant, the battlefield was completely reversed. Inside the hall, players could only catch glimpses of a flickering dark blur. Feng Heng's figure flashed through the air, launching attack after attack around the Titan Guardian. Each strike dealt massive damage, carving huge, dark, golden spiderweb-like cracks into the Titan's body, and the Guardian couldn't defend himself at all. At the same time, countless vines emerged from unknown sources, madly spreading and wrapping around the Titan, climbing up his body from his feet. Sharp steel thorns pierced from the dense vines, trying to stab into the Titan's petrified skin and draw his blood. Unfortunately, the steel thorns couldn't break through the Titan's external defense, so they could only wrap around and entangle him layer by layer. In just a few moments, the Titan Guardian's entire body was covered in dark golden spiderweb-like cracks, making him look hideous and terrifying. The Southern Region Federation players all showed expressions of disbelief. What was going on? The human ancestor Titan Guardian was being suppressed completely by Feng Heng alone? You dare. The Titan Guardian could feel the strength quickly leaving his body, and even sensed his life was under immense threat. Whoosh! Under the stunned gazes of everyone present, Feng Heng suddenly vanished from his spot and reappeared right in front of the Titan Guardian. Kai! Feng Heng, holding the Great Holy Sword in one hand, stabbed it viciously into the Titan Guardian's forehead and said coldly, "God's punishment." Boom! Under the Great Holy Sword's guidance and empowerment, a crimson lightning bolt fell from the sky, slamming down hard on the Titan Guardian. Struck by lightning, the Titan's entire body trembled violently. Layers of rocky skin crumbled off, revealing a dark golden light underneath. Still not dead? Then one more. Boom. Boom 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 boom. One after another, violent lightning bolts crashed down. The Titan Guardian was unable to fight back. Centered on the holy sword embedded in his forehead, dark golden cracks rapidly spread across his entire body. The Titan roared, "You can't kill me. I am the world's guardian. If you kill me, not only you, but your entire world will be completely exposed, old man, don't worry about it." A mocking smile appeared at the corner of Feng Heng's mouth. "It's our world. We can protect it ourselves. Don't come here and tell us what to do." Boom. Just as the words fell, another crimson lightning bolt struck down. The golden light on the Titan Guardian's cracked surface trembled violently and finally exploded before Feng Heng's eyes. Bang! Bang bang bang! Dark golden cracked stone fragments flew outward. Feng Heng's sharp perception caught something within the fragments flying out. He reached forward with a wave. Whoosh! A white crystal stone covered in dark golden cracks flew into his palm. This was... Though there was no game hint, Feng Heng could sense a ripple of power from within the crystal stone. The stone could be absorbed. Feng Heng flipped his wrist, and with his mental strength activated, the pure energy within the stone transformed into chi and flowed rapidly into his body, settling in his sea of consciousness. At the same time, the stone shrank rapidly until it completely weathered and disappeared. Chapter 3007, Conversion. At the same time, the Eternal Tree Realm skill also ceased to circulate. The vines gathered around Feng Heng's periphery quickly dispersed and disappeared. The entire hall returned to its original calm, leaving behind players in the hall with varied expressions. What the hell? The Southern Region Federation player team looked at Feng Heng as if they were seeing a terrifying demon. He must be insane. The human ancestor Titan was killed by this guy. Retreat. Dorian met Feng Heng's gaze, and his heart skipped a beat. Sensing something was wrong, he waved his hand and immediately led his team to retreat quickly. They were doomed. They had originally planned to call reinforcements to deal with Feng Heng, but now the reinforcements had been wiped out. If they didn't run now, when would they? Dorian and the Southern Region Federation group, afraid that Feng Heng would give chase, fled the Great Hall in panic. Archbishop Whiteman of the Holy Court and the others immediately gathered around Feng Heng, looked in the direction the Southern Region Federation had fled, and asked, "Great Sage, shall we pursue them?" "No need to bother." Feng Heng shook his head and looked away from the retreating Southern Region Federation group. It wasn't worth wasting time on them. Although the Titan had been dealt with, the energy orb remained. Continue absorbing. Ignoring the surprised gazes from the other players in the hall, Feng Heng sat cross-legged again and released his mental strength to stimulate the orb, fully absorbing the energy spilling out of it. Absorb. Keep going. In an instant, triggered by Feng Heng's mental strength, a large amount of energy gushed from the orb, quickly forming a vortex above his body. The remaining players in the Great Hall looked at one another, each showing a heavy expression. A terrifying guy. There had been rumors recently that the Holy Court's strength had greatly declined. Whoever spread that fake news nearly fooled them. The great sage of the Holy Court could even shatter the Titan ancestor. Thankfully, it seemed the Holy Court had no intention of driving them out. What were they waiting for? Time to continue absorbing energy. Without further hesitation, everyone sat cross-legged on the spot and continued to absorb energy. 6 full hours passed. The light sphere in the center of the hall gradually dimmed. Feng Heng opened his eyes. It was about done. As the energy released from the orb became weaker and weaker, until only traces remained, the players seated around the ice crystal also opened their eyes and looked toward Feng Heng. Feng Heng slowly walked toward the central orb. The orb was still emitting traces of chi energy. But it was extremely weak. Feng Heng tried pressing his hand on the orb. The orb felt icy cold to the touch. It appeared to be an item capable of storing chi energy, and it was still slowly absorbing elemental strength from the surrounding ice crystal maze environment, gradually converting it into chi. Though slow, it was indeed converting. So, the energy released earlier from the orb had been accumulated over tens of thousands of years? Feng Heng examined the orb closely, a thought stirring in his mind. He had noticed it before. Now that he was taking a closer look, this orb resembled the Death Realm Orb and the Holy Realm Orb. Was it just a coincidence? After all, they were all spherical orbs. Similar appearances were normal. Whoosh! Feng Heng tried storing the orb in his backpack. Huh? It actually worked? Hint: the player has obtained Item Titan's Refined Orb. Item Titan's Refined Orb. Description: an orb refined by the ancient Titan race using secret techniques. It can store chi energy. If placed in an energy-rich environment, the orb can absorb other attribute energies and slowly convert them into chi. As expected, it did have the ability to convert into chi. Feng Heng's thoughts raced as he looked down at the base of the refined orb. The stone slab beneath the Titan orb, which held it up, was engraved with fine patterns. It looked like an alchemy magic array. The array had a dual effect: 1, it levitated the orb in midair; 2, it accelerated the orb's absorption of environmental energy. Feng Heng activated his omniscient eye at full capacity. The magic array rapidly spun in his pupil, and he forcibly engraved and memorized the array into his sea of consciousness. Great Sage. Archbishop Whiteman, seeing that Feng Heng appeared to have gained some insight, respectfully stepped forward and asked, "Are you all right? I have some questions." "You can go ahead first. I need to stay here and think for a while." As he spoke, Feng Heng closed his eyes again and sat down. "Yes, Great Sage. We are willing to stay and protect you." Archbishop Whiteman answered seriously, signaling his subordinates to form a protective circle around Feng Heng and stay alert. The remaining players from all the Federation zones in the Great Hall didn't dare speak. They glanced at each other. The purpose of their expedition was to obtain the so-called Enlightenment treasure. Now it seemed that the so-called treasure might have been the orb they had just seen. The orb had already fallen into the hands of the Holy Court. Seize it from the Holy Court? Everyone had seen Feng Heng's strength. The smaller teams didn't even dare entertain the thought. The Western Federation had already been scared witless by Feng Heng. Not a chance they would act. The Central Federation, partly because of its relationship with the Holy Court and partly out of fear of Fang Heng's power, also refrained from acting. The Eastern Federation knew Fang Heng's identity, but with so many outsiders present, it wasn't the right time to approach him either. After waiting a bit and seeing no signs of Fang Heng waking, the various Federation teams discussed among themselves and left a small group behind to wait while the rest continued exploring the remaining areas of the Ice Crystal Maze. At this point, Fang Heng was completely unaware of what was happening outside. With his eyes closed, he focused entirely on studying the chi he had absorbed. According to the skill description, chi could be converted into other forms of energy. But strangely, in recent tests, chi could not be converted into holy power. Now that he had some free time, Fang Heng carefully conducted further tests on the chi. Since forward conversion didn't work, he tried reverse conversion, transforming other academic energy into chi. Fang Heng attempted to convert the natural science energy in his sea of consciousness. It worked. The natural energy dwelling in his sea of consciousness quickly flowed into his body, automatically circulating once with a sense of instinct. When it returned to the sea of consciousness, it had already been transformed into chi. It really worked. However, the entire conversion process wasn't easy. It required complete mental focus. Moreover, there was an issue of conversion efficiency. 50% of the energy was lost during the conversion process. So, if reverse conversion was possible, why couldn't forward conversion be done? Fang Heng pondered and tried again. The chi circulated through his body once and was successfully converted back into natural energy. But after 2 conversions, the natural energy had suffered a 75% loss. That's it. Suddenly, Fang Heng had a moment of realization. The Titan's academic unification had only been partially completed, and sacred energy likely wasn't included in the range of convertible energies. Chapter 3008, Untitled. So, Fang Heng patiently tried all forms of academic energy one by one. Except for necromancy, sacred study, and hell studies, all other types of energy could be converted. It was just that the conversion speed was too slow, and it required splitting focus to condense divine control, making it difficult to accomplish during combat. So, this move. It was an extremely powerful auxiliary skill. Most multi-skills required energy to level up, and he could completely use the conversion of chi to supplement the energy. Unfortunately, all of his current skills had already reached their maximum levels, so there was no way to test them. But it was most likely correct. This made things very interesting. For example, if a spatial science skill required absorbing spatial energy to level up. But spatial energy was extremely rare, making leveling up very troublesome. Then theoretically, he could completely absorb the more easily found natural energy, convert natural energy into chi, and then convert chi into the needed spatial energy. Wouldn't that allow for closed-door cultivation and rapid leveling? Let's try. Fang Heng once again attempted to convert the newly transformed natural energy into chi, and then converted the chi into spatial energy. It worked. It took quite a bit of time going back and forth, and each time there was a 50% loss, but it was absolutely doable. A good find. In the future, bottlenecks in academic cultivation would become much smaller. In Fang Heng's eyes, the other additional attributes of the Titan bloodline were just extra perks. The Titan bloodline was born for the fusion of various disciplines. No wonder the Titans were considered the most knowledgeable race in the universe in cosmic legends, capable of fusing all kinds of disciplines. With such a bug-like learning ability, the hardest part of mastering multiple disciplines would only be completing their advancements. While Fang Heng immersed himself joyfully in his sea of consciousness, in the outside world, the various federations had nearly finished exploring the Ice Crystal Maze. With the orb in the central Great Hall completely losing its power, the monsters within the Ice Crystal Maze also vanished and no longer spawned. The federations wandered around the maze a few more times without further discoveries, but instead found a side hall hidden outside the trial hall. The secret room had originally been the place of the Titan Guardian. Upon researching, they discovered murals and written records engraved on the stone walls of the secret room. The various federations gathered before the wall and took turns copying the text. The Eastern Federation had always been ahead of others in researching the Titans, and several members of Li Zixuan's research team were present, so they immediately began translating. The Central Federation, Northern District, and Western Federation were almost entirely unfamiliar with the Titans. This was the first time they had even heard of them. Seeing that the Eastern Federation had already begun translating, they thickened their faces and stayed to observe. Li Zixuan's research team, based on past translation experience, quickly guessed and interpreted most of the content. Yi Qingxi, after receiving the newly completed translation report, looked somewhat grim. The inheritance of Titan bloodlines wasn't so easy to obtain. Roa from the Central Federation brought his men over and asked, "Friends from the Eastern Federation, have you discovered something? Would you be willing to share some of the intel?" The Central Federation would owe you a favor. The other two federations were equally curious and gathered around, also voicing their agreement. This matter does indeed concern humanity, so we won't hide it from everyone. Yi Qingzi knew in his heart that if given time, the other federations would eventually decipher the text, so it was better to earn a favor early. He passed out the translated manuscripts to each party. The federal commanders from each region thanked him and came forward to examine the documents. After reading the translated content, everyone's expressions changed subtly. The engraved content was lengthy, recorded from the first-person perspective of the Titan Guardian, and contained three key pieces of information. First, humans were indeed descendants of the Titans and carried a portion of the Titan bloodline, but the bloodline was very diluted. A long time ago, when the Titans faced extinction, their ancestors deliberately hid the concentration of human Titan blood and Guardians escort a portion of the bloodline into this world to ensure survival. Later, the Titan Guardian established the Ice Crystal Maze but encountered an unknown invasion. The invaders severely injured the Guardian, causing him to enter a hibernation state. He only woke up after a long time, and by then his memory was already fuzzy. He only remembered that the artifact he brought from his race, the Scholar's imprint, had gone missing. Second, the previously discovered orb in the cavern could absorb ambient energy and slowly convert it into chi, which humans could absorb to enhance and refine their bloodline, restoring the power of the Titan bloodline. Lastly and most critically, in order to avoid extinction and protect their location, the Titan Guardian had left behind a special seal that masked the world's aura and coordinates. Now, with the Guardian and the orb's energy completely dissipated, the entire world was fully exposed. At this moment, the world was in an unprotected state. After reading the full translation, silence fell over the secret room. Li Zixuan looked up and said, from certain descriptive details, the Titan texts again mentioned that untranslatable term. We believe it's the name of a race, the very enemy that once threatened the Titans with extinction. Gods. Everyone fell into deeper silence. What did that mean? The ones who destroyed the Titans were the gods? Reflecting on the text carved into the stone wall, the federations quickly caught on. The orb in the Great Hall could absorb surrounding energy and convert it into chi, and chi was essential to fully awaken and refine their bloodline. And now, the energy orb was in the hands of the Holy Court. No one present had completed the bloodline refinement. Which meant, if they wanted to continue absorbing chi for bloodline refinement in the future, they would be dependent on the Holy Court. Aside from the Eastern Federation, the other federations began thinking about how to deal with the Holy Court moving forward, and how they could acquire the orb. At the very least, they needed access to the orb's power for cultivation. It was over. Augustine from the Western Federation sighed internally. Their previous conflict with Fang Heng had been so tense, how could they now shamelessly ask to borrow the orb from him? They might be willing to swallow their pride, but Fang Heng might not be willing to accept it. Everyone, perhaps we have a more urgent problem to deal with. Our world has lost its protection, and we may now be facing imminent threats from the outside. Chapter 3009, divided up. The crowd looked at each other. In fact, the various regional federations had long had doubts. So many years had passed, yet extraterrestrial life forms had never set foot in their world. Even the spawns had only been discovered when they actively searched for clues and made contact with them on their own initiative. Moreover, when the Western District Federation had communicated with the spawns in the past, they had clearly discovered that the spawns did not possess specific coordinates of their world. It was as if their world was in a hidden state from the perspective of the spawns. With the protection of the Titans failing, all the races hostile to humanity might now come knocking. Even the gods who had once wiped out the Titans. The leader of the North District Federation snorted coldly and said, Humphrey, what is there to fear? Haven't we humans faced enough crises? When have we not survived them? Instead of worrying and cowering in fear, it's better to fight boldly and gamble for a future. Everyone heard this and could only smile bitterly in their hearts, nodding in agreement. What else could they do? At the very least, they couldn't lose in terms of morale. Disasters, black fog, and now even gods? What a world full of hardship and calamity. Half an hour later. At the center of the temple, Fang Heng ended his secluded cultivation and opened his eyes. Qi was indeed useful. It could unconditionally convert various academic energies. The only troublesome part was that it took a lot of time, and since the energy was stored in the sea of consciousness, it could not be processed through his zombie clones. Great Sage. Archbishop Whiteman respectfully nodded and handed over a note. The Federation discovered a secret room next door. This is the content translated from the writings on the stone wall. Fang Heng took the note and read it, silently calculating. The information recorded in the text was most likely true. By his estimation, the Titan Guardian they had encountered earlier had indeed been guarding the existence of humanity. It was just that the Guardian had encountered an intruder, Zai, while guarding the Ice Crystal Maze. Zai had defeated the Titan Guardian, taken the scholar's imprint from him, and also left behind the seed of Ouroboros within the maze. So the mastermind behind the Land of Enlightenment this time was most likely Zai. It was she who had guided him here and enabled him to obtain the Titan's power. Feng Heng narrowed his eyes slightly. Zai had always been cold and indifferent toward him in the past, yet lately she had been secretly and openly guiding him, rapidly helping him increase his strength. Most likely, there was a more dangerous mission awaiting him afterward. Feng Heng looked at the note again. What concerned him most was the so-called gods mentioned in the record. The ancestors of the Titans had been exterminated by the gods, so what kind of existence were these gods? At this moment, the teams left behind by the various federations were all in the Great Hall. Seeing Feng Heng awaken, they all stepped forward. The Central Federation did not know Feng Heng's true identity and still believed him to be the great sage of the Holy Realm. Holding on to their good relationship with the Holy Court, Roa stepped forward and gave a respectful bow. Great sage, the Central Federation hopes to borrow the orb in your possession to help us awaken our bloodlines. Borrow the orb? Feng Heng looked down and checked the information of the Titan orb in his backpack. Currently, the energy in the orb had been depleted. Though it could slowly convert surrounding energy, the efficiency was very low. The orb's main function was to store energy, which was not particularly useful to him. At least, the chi stored in his sea of consciousness was enough to last him for a long time. Relying on the orb to slowly gather chi was simply too inefficient. Lending it to the Federation seemed like a good idea. Feng Heng thought for a moment and asked, "Is that so? Then what are you willing to exchange for it?" Roa looked at Feng Heng with some surprise. In previous dealings with the Holy Court, they had always maintained a haughty demeanor and cared greatly about appearances. Rarely had they been so direct about asking for benefits. This great sage's way of doing things was rather unconventional. Our Central Federation has always maintained close cooperation with the Holy Court. If there's anything you need, the Holy Court may make a request, and we will do our best to fulfill it. Ahem. Seeing this, Yi Qingxi, leader of the Eastern Federation, feared that the Central Federation might take the lead and quickly coughed lightly. Great sage, the Eastern Federation also wishes to exchange for a period of use of the orb. We also want to borrow the orb for a while. The leaders of the Western District Federation, Augustine, and the North District Federation immediately nodded in agreement. Since everyone is so interested in the orb, Feng Heng calculated briefly and said, "Very well. I have always acted fairly. Right now, I need various academic skill advancement books. Whoever can provide me with high-level advancement books can use the orb for a longer period." As he spoke, Feng Heng took a pen and paper from Archbishop Whiteman and quickly wrote down the academic skills he currently possessed. Sacred Study and Necromancy didn't need to be listed. There were no direct skill books available for them anyway. As for the others, Feng Heng checked his own academic levels and began listing his needs. Astrology requires a high-tier or above skill advancement book. Alchemy requires a master level or above skill advancement book. Occult, Curse Inscription, requires a master level or above skill advancement book. Summoning, Contracting, Spatial Science, Natural Science, Elemental Science, Psychic, Sealing Arts, Mysticism, Astrology, again. Oh, right. Halfway through writing, Feng Heng suddenly thought of something and looked up. If there are any special bloodline skill books, those can also be provided. The representatives from each federation looked at one another with puzzled expressions. Only when Feng Heng handed over the completed note for everyone to read did they become even more bewildered, their expressions growing increasingly strange. Wasn't he supposed to be the great sage of the Holy Court? Why did he need so many skill advancement books? And all of them were high level? Upon closer inspection, they realized that aside from necromancy, sacred study, and hell studies, it included almost every known academic skill. "We'll try our best to search for them," Roa said with a bit of a headache. After some thought, he added, "Great sage, high-tier academic skill books are extremely rare and mostly bound to individuals. But if we can find related missions or information, that's fine too. But the exchange time will be shorter. Also, I only need one copy, so don't submit duplicates." Understood. Roa noted down the information and quickly left. Each federation had some stock of high-level academic skill books. They were typically reserved for training their own elite members. If they went back and searched thoroughly, there was a slim chance of finding some master-level or even grandmaster-level skill books. Especially those linked to advancement missions. If they could quickly find and hand them over to Feng Heng, they could gain access to the orb sooner and enhance the overall strength of their regional players. Chapter 3010, Plan 10 days later. Feng Heng broke out of his cultivation state and suddenly opened his eyes with a whoosh. Ever since he issued the competition quotas to the various regional federations, they had begun gathering all kinds of skill books. Fang Heng simply stayed behind in the ice crystal maze to cultivate. The chi was indeed useful. He could convert natural energy into chi, and then convert chi into various types of attribute energy. As soon as he obtained a skill advancement book provided by the Federation, he would directly complete a skill advancement. Leveling up was ridiculously fast. Bishop Whiteman, who had led a team to guard Fang Heng day and night, stepped forward respectfully and said, "Great Sage, Mr. Chen Yu from the Eastern Federation seeks an audience. He is currently waiting outside the Great Hall." During this period, Whiteman had already labeled Fang Heng in his heart as a grind king. Neither Whiteman nor the Holy Court guards had ever seen someone so dedicated to cultivation as Fang Heng. Almost 24 hours a day without sleep or rest. Besides cultivating, it was cultivating. Even though he had already reached the level of Great Sage, he still did not give up on refining his strength. Whiteman held deep respect and awe for Fang Heng. "Is that so? Go ahead and invite them in." After cultivating for over 10 days straight, Fang Heng also felt his body was a bit stiff, so he got up and stretched. Soon, Chen Yu and Augustine from the Western District Federation entered the hall under the escort of Holy Court guards. Chen Yu greeted him with a simple smile, "Mr. Fang. Sorry to keep you waiting. I've been cultivating recently and just finished." "What's the matter?" Fang Heng was a bit curious, wondering when Chen Yu started hanging around with people from the Western District Federation. "No worries, no worries." Chen Yu waved his hands repeatedly, looking at Fang Heng with sincere admiration. He had been one of the first to get in contact with Fang Heng. He had witnessed how Fang Heng had risen step by step from a newcomer to where he was now. Chen Yu also knew that Fang Heng didn't like beating around the bush, so he got straight to the point. "Mr. Fang, we've run into some trouble. It's related to the spawns." "Spawns?" Fang Heng furrowed his brows and asked, "What exactly happened?" Chen Yu nudged Augustine beside him with his elbow and said, "Here, you see the person now. You caused the trouble, so you explain it." Augustine gave a bitter smile. Helplessly, since the problem had been stirred up by the Western District Federation, they had no choice but to find a way to fix it themselves. "It's like this. Great Sage, you may know that due to some concerns, the Western region's plan to establish a star map control center has been temporarily put on hold. The spawns have been showing increasing dissatisfaction with our delays, and our Western District Federation has been under a lot of pressure. A few days ago, the spawn sent us an ultimatum. They stated that they had invested a large number of resources into us humans early on, and warned us that we must complete the Tier 1 star map control system within 30 days as scheduled. Otherwise, the spawns will send personnel into our world to help us finish the construction." Fang Heng thought to himself, "So the star map project really is a mess of your own making. Now you can't handle it and want me to clean it up?" The spawns have always had a relatively mild attitude toward humans. For them to suddenly become this aggressive, did something happen? Augustine explained, the spawns' discontent likely had been brewing for a long time. It's just that previously they didn't have the exact location coordinates of our world and thus couldn't enter it. Maybe due to the loss of the Titan Guardian's protection, the spawns have now clearly obtained our precise space-time coordinates, which is why they issued the threat and gave us 30 days. "I see." Fang Heng nodded lightly and stroked his chin in thought. That might be true, but he remembered the spawns were very wary of pollution. Unless in an extreme crisis, they would never step into the black fog or areas related to the seed of Ouroboros. Most likely, when the time came, the spawns wouldn't act personally but would send allied teams instead. Augustine looked worried and said, "Mr. Fang, if the spawns simply post the mission on their internet platform, I fear many Spawn Alliance races will enter our world, creating massive chaos." Indeed. For example, the Shadow Clan, which had long been at odds with humanity. If that group entered the real world, they'd cause serious trouble. Before coming here, we already coordinated with the other major federations. We will do everything in our power to prevent this from happening, but if we do face attacks from the spawns and their allied races, we will stand together and resist the foreign enemies. After the Titan incident, regardless of whether each major region truly understood Fang Heng's identity, no one dared to underestimate him anymore. At the same time, the federal departments were deeply anxious about the approaching Spawn Alliance offensive. On one hand, they were trying to de-escalate the situation as much as possible, while on the other hand, they were preparing for the worst and getting ready to fight. At least based on the intelligence gathered during the last joint mission between the Western and Eastern Federations against the Spawn Alliance, the Federation's situation was not optimistic. "I understand. I'll keep an eye on this matter. If necessary, I'll step in to help resist the invaders." "Thank you, Mr. Fang." After Augustine left, Fang Heng turned to Chen Yu, who remained behind, and asked, "Go ahead, what other trouble have you run into? How can I help?" "Mr. Fang, a few days ago, over at the fleet side, our alliance status with the spawns was revoked. Although we can still log into the spawn system, we now only have access to some basic functions. The transition passage to spawn headquarters has been severed, and the transition exchange system has been shut down. Feng Heng frowned. That was a bit of a problem. He had been grinding academic skills on one side while the fleet had been farming spawn contribution points and expanding. Possibly due to the Western District Federation's stance, the entire human race was now being targeted. We prepared some contingency plans beforehand. We currently have access to several worlds that can be explored and harvested for resources, but the resources we collect can't be submitted to the spawns at the moment. Also, the number of world coordinates we have is limited, so this can't last forever. It's best if the spawn trouble can be resolved soon. Mr. Feng, if you need our help with anything, just let us know. I understand. Feng Heng nodded in agreement. Continue with resource collection for now. Once we're done with a few worlds, put it on hold. I'll go into closed-door cultivation and prepare to fight the Spawn Alliance. Alright. Chen Yu's expression also grew serious. He nodded and took his leave. Watching Chen Yu's departing figure, Feng Heng silently calculated in his heart. First, he would settle down and grind for a while, gradually improving his strength using the skill books gathered by the federations. Once his academic disciplines had been brought to a satisfactory level, he would take the initiative to strike and go after the Jealousy Demonic Seed and the various allied forces of the spawns. Chapter 3011, missing more than half a month later. World of Forests. The Abakia vine thicket blossomed with a glowing light, exuding a vibrant natural aura and power. Feng Heng sat cross-legged beneath the roots, absorbing the surrounding natural energy into his body. The entire world of forests continuously produced natural energy. And this energy was more than 10 times greater than that of the ice crystal maze. So, more than 10 days ago, Feng Heng had simply left the Titan orb in the ice crystal maze, handing over the maze to be jointly managed and allocated by the Holy Court and the major federations. As for himself, he stayed under the vines of Abakia, cultivating using the abundant natural energy of the world of forests. Hint: the player's current Grandmaster level natural science has been raised to level 44, ho. Feng Heng glanced at the game prompt out of the corner of his eye and exhaled a breath of turbid air, bringing his cultivation to a temporary halt. He stood up, looked at the Tree Spirit Tribe elders waiting respectfully behind him, and asked, "What's the matter?" "Mr. Feng Heng." 2 elders from the Tree Spirit Tribe stepped forward respectfully and reported, "Sorry to disturb your cultivation, but it's regarding the goddess Claraway." Feng Heng was slightly stirred upon hearing the name. Claraway was of half-elf descent and could sense part of the consciousness of the sacred tree Abakia. As such, she was usually responsible for caring for Abakia. Later, with Feng Heng's encouragement, she gradually began to participate in the daily management of the world of forests. After all, Feng Heng didn't have that much energy and only wanted to be a hands-off overseer. Thus, in the eyes of the Tree Spirit Tribe, Claraway, who could communicate with the sacred tree, was the goddess, responsible for managing most affairs of the world of forests. Her status was only 1 level below Feng Heng's. The Tree Spirit Tribe elder respectfully reported, "The goddess has been missing for 24 hours. Such a situation has never occurred before. We've investigated her room and found no signs of her being there. We're worried and wanted to ask if you knew her whereabouts." "Missing?" Feng Heng was a bit surprised. He thought for a moment and asked, "When was the last time you saw Claraway? Was there anything unusual at the time?" "It was during yesterday's morning meeting, which the goddess presided over. Nothing appeared out of the ordinary. Afterward, she personally attended to the sacred tree, and then no one saw her again. She did not attend today's morning meeting, nor did she notify anyone in advance. That has never happened before, and the tribe is very concerned." Feng Heng rubbed his chin. Claraway had been entrusted to him by Oriana, the natural science instructor. There shouldn't be any danger in the game. At least within the world of forests, all areas with trees and vines were under Abakia's protection and surveillance. Could it be something outside the game? "I understood. You all may leave." Feng Heng waved his hand. "Yes." The 2 Tree Spirit elders respectfully took their leave. Feng Heng closed his eyes and attempted to connect with Abakia. Soon, he established a mental link. Through the mental connection, he learned that Claraway had came to find him more than once during his closed-door cultivation, but he had remained in seclusion the entire time. That day, after the morning meeting, Claraway had also come to find him, but failing to do so, she went offline and never returned to the world of forests. Feng Heng grew more suspicious. So, Claraway had gone missing in the real world. Abakia's vine branches slowly gathered and gently brushed against Feng Heng's shoulder. "Is that so? You're worried about her?" "So am I," Feng Heng nodded lightly. "In that case, let's go find her ourselves." Feng Heng had rarely looked into Claraway's background, only knowing that she was a half-elf. It didn't matter. The natural science instructor would likely know where Clairway had gone. So, 2 hours later, Fang Heng found Oriana, the natural science instructor, at her mage hut in the forest. I think Clairway most likely returned to the Elven tribe. After hearing Fang Heng's account, Oriana sighed softly and continued, I foresaw this day would come. Clairway is a half-elf. Her bloodline is considered impure by the Elven tribe. Her mother was also imprisoned by the elves for this reason. I think she misses her mother dearly. Perhaps she was summoned by the Elven tribe and left temporarily. Fang Heng frowned. Are you saying Clairway left willingly? I'm not sure, Oriana shook her head. At the very least, if she were taken by force, we should have sensed her aura and received a message from her. Do you know where the Elven tribe is? The Elven tribe is extremely secretive. I only met Clairway in another world within the game. Thank you, instructor, Fang Heng nodded. Clairway is my friend. If you hear any news about her, please let me know immediately. Of course. After leaving Oriana's hut, Fang Heng lowered his head in thought. All clues pointed toward Clairway leaving of her own volition, and most likely heading for the Elven tribe. Unfortunately, the Elven tribe's world had not yet been discovered in any advanced game worlds. All sources had come up empty so far. Could it be a hidden world? At the very least, there was no way to access it at the moment. After a brief thought, Fang Heng decided to search Clairway's house in the real world to see if he could find any clues related to the elves. So Fang Heng transformed into his bat form and flew directly toward Clairway's residence. Before her disappearance, Clairway had spent most of her time in the game. In the real world, she also disliked interacting with others. So with Mojai Ai's help, she had purchased a detached villa in the suburbs. She would sometimes live in the villa when not in the game. An hour later, Fang Heng entered the periphery of Clairway's villa and frowned. What's going on? From a distance, he looked down. The Federation's crisis management unit had already surrounded the villa in several tight layers. Something was definitely wrong. Fang Heng's heart stirred as he flew downward and reverted to his human form. Who goes there? Lu Yunhao, head of the Eastern Federation's crisis management unit, turned around alertly and was startled upon seeing the person behind him. The team of Federation investigators quickly raised their guns and pointed them at him. It's me, Fang Heng. The name carried weight. When the investigation team saw that it was Fang Heng, their expressions changed slightly. In the Eastern Federation, anyone familiar with the game had heard of Fang Heng. The Federation players present were even more aware of Fang Heng's status. He was the dual world lord of the vampire world and a zombie apocalypse world. Recently, rumors had emerged that Fang Heng had inherited the power of the Vampire King. Even an ordinary vampire player was considered top tier, not to mention the Vampire King himself. His strength was terrifying. On top of that, Fang Heng was a closely cooperating player with the Eastern Federation, holding the highest clearance level, and in certain cases even had the authority to temporarily mobilize crisis management units. Pointing guns at him? Were they insane? Lu Yunhao quickly signaled the investigators to lower their weapons and hurriedly apologized. Sorry, Mr. Fang Heng. We didn't recognize you. Chapter 3012, Search. Fang Heng didn't pay much attention and nodded toward the villa, asking, what's going on there? Between 13:30 and 14:15 today, a series of attacks occurred in Lianhua district of this city, causing partial paralysis of the local traffic system. The attacks resulted in 7 police officers seriously injured and 12 civilians lightly wounded. There were 3 suspects involved. According to eyewitness accounts, it is suspected that they might be Phase 2 unlocked players from the real world. 2 hours ago, the 3 suspects entered the villa, suspected of establishing a temporary stronghold inside. The first reconnaissance team was exposed at 16:23 while performing close-range internal reconnaissance of the villa. The target abandoned the attack first, resulting in 8 of our personnel seriously injured and 2 fatalities. Based on the suspect's attack intensity and energy residue analysis, the target's threat level was raised to 2S levels. Thermal imaging showed 3 moving heat sources inside the villa. The Federation's Crisis Management Department has authorized the formation of the Falcon, Red Wolf, and Windrunner task forces to gather and enter the villa for exploration. It is estimated that 3 SSS-level players and 12 SS-level players will be deployed. The personnel are still gathering. Fang Heng stared at the nearby villa and released his own perception. There were only 3 auras. Clairway was not inside the villa. I'll go in and have a look. Lu Yunhao swallowed nervously. All right, Boss Fang. The 3 suspects have been hiding on the first floor hall of the villa. They use arrows to ambush from a distance once approached, so please be careful. If possible, take the headset. We will enter immediately to assist if you encounter danger. Got it. Fang Heng said as he took the headset handed by Lu Yunhao and put it on. Under the watchful eyes of the Federation Elite Task Force members, Fang Heng walked toward the villa entrance. As soon as he pushed open the villa door and entered the courtyard, hidden automatic traps triggered, and several pale green arrows shot out from inside. Bang! 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 The arrows shattered midair under an unknown force. Whoosh! Fang Heng lightly tapped the ground with his toes, dodged swiftly, and entered the villa interior. Inside the first-floor building of the villa, 3 elves were setting up some kind of alchemy magic array on the ground. Surprised by Fang Heng's sudden intrusion through the main door, they all turned to look at him. Elves? Seeing their slender figures and sharply upright ears, Fang Heng immediately realized. The 3 suspects the Federation was pursuing were not players but elves. It seemed the 3 elves were laying out some kind of alchemy magic array in the villa's hall, with various bottles and jars arranged in a circle around the array. Who are you? Fang Heng's sudden intrusion disrupted their magic array activation. The alchemy magic array failed to operate, and all 3 looked up at him. The leader, an elf, frowned deeply, showing displeasure, and shouted, "Kill him." Whoosh! 2 elves moved swiftly, one to the left and one to the right, rapidly condensing several green arrows around their bodies and shooting them at Fang Heng. Bang! 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 Fang Heng stood still without moving. All the arrows exploded about 2 meters in front of him. Huh? So easily blocked? The elf scout captain was about to warn his 2 subordinates to be careful when suddenly his vision blurred. What? Bang! Bang! 2 heavy impacts sounded almost simultaneously. The 2 elves who attacked Fang Heng were instantly thrown aside, crashing hard into the walls. Throughout this, the elf scout captain couldn't see clearly how Fang Heng had acted. Whoosh! In the next moment, Fang Heng seemed to have directly crossed a spatial gap and appeared right before him. Bang! The elf scout captain felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen and, like the others, was slammed into the wall behind him. Human. The captain lifted his head, glaring furiously at Fang Heng, threatening, "You lowly human, do you know what you're doing? You have harmed the noble elves. The Elf Council will raise your entire human world. If you kneel and apologize now, I might give you a chance." "Hey, are you threatening me?" Fang Heng sneered coldly, raising his hand gently forward. The elf scout captain's heart jumped as he suddenly felt his blood flow accelerate uncontrollably. His body stiffened on the spot, then his nose and ears began to feel hot. What? Looking down, the elf scout captain saw blood uncontrollably flowing out of his facial orifices. The blood spread like a spiderweb over his skin. His lifeblood was controlled, and his body was slowly lifted into the air. Fang Heng stared into the elf's eyes and said coldly, "What are you looking for? Where is Clairway? Let me go." The elf's fear rose from his heart, but he still glared fiercely at Fang Heng. "Clairway has returned to the elves to accept punishment for sheltering outsiders. Human, you better let me go, or else." Fang Heng frowned. The blood quickly spread down the elf captain's face to his neck, gripping it tightly. His face turned pale instantly. He struggled madly with both hands, trying to claw at his neck. Fang Heng asked coldly, "Last chance. What are you looking for? Don't think you'll get a single word from me, human." Bang. Fang Heng clenched his fist heavily, and the elf captain exploded into a cloud of blood mist midair. The other 2 elves were heavily injured by Fang Heng's punches. They tried to struggle to stand but, seeing their captain turn into blood mist, were shocked and looked at Fang Heng with terror. "And you?" Fang Heng's gaze shifted to the 2 remaining elves, raising his right hand again. Like their captain, blood seeped uncontrollably from their facial features. They completely lost control of their bodies and were slowly lifted into the air by the blood power. "Answer my question. What are you searching for? You humans, don't think you'll get a single word from us. You will regret what you've done today. The Elf Council will wash your world in blood. Your world will be destroyed because of you. Is that so?" Fang Heng smiled coldly. A rotating magic ray appeared in his right eye pupil. The omniscient eye. Using illusion and psychic suggestion, the 2 elves met Fang Heng's gaze, their pupils also reflecting 2 swirling magic rays. Their eyes gradually grew vacant. Fang Heng asked again, "Tell me, what is your purpose here?" We were ordered to search Clairway's residence for." Suddenly, the 2 elves, who had already been mentally controlled, were hit by some stimulus. Their previously dazed eyes turned blood red in an instant, their faces rapidly flushed red, and the red veins beneath their skin became more pronounced, giving them a terrifying appearance. Chapter 3013, Invasion PFFT. PFFT. In the next moment, 2 elves simultaneously spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted after hitting the ground. Fang Heng frowned. It was a mental conflict. Someone had implanted a mental suggestion in their minds beforehand, and the suggestion was extremely restrictive. Under the clash of these two forces, it was likely that these two elves would suffer mental disorders after waking up. Elves? Feng Heng murmured to himself and tried to walk over to the alchemy magic array nearby to observe it closely. It was a small-scale teleportation alchemy magic array. Its effect was to teleport certain things back to a target location. Feng Heng then looked at the bottles and jars beside the alchemy magic array. The jars were filled with some plants. He had heard that Clarawea liked cultivating strange plants at home. Did the elves need these plants? Mr. Feng, Mr. Feng? Are you alright? Urgent voices came through the earpiece from outside. Yeah, I'm fine. Feng Heng picked up the earpiece and said, the problem has been solved, you can come in now. Outside, Lu Yunhao and the emergency team heard a few bangs through the earpiece, then silence. Hesitating about whether to take action, they immediately signaled the team to break into the room to check after receiving Feng Heng's feedback. Then, the crisis management team entered the villa and saw two unconscious elves inside the room, along with a pile of bloodied, shattered flesh. Mr. Feng, these two. They fainted, the other one is dead. Lu Yunhao cautiously walked over to Feng Heng, who was squatting beside the inspection magic array in the central hall, and quietly asked, can we take these two for questioning? Yeah, take them away. They're not players, both are elves and not weak. Be careful. Understood. Lu Yunhao ordered his subordinates to take the elves away, then looked at the alchemy magic array in front of Feng Heng with some bitterness and asked, Mr. Feng, what's going on here? I came here to investigate a missing half-elf friend of mine. This villa is her residence, Feng Heng explained. This alchemy magic array is a special teleportation transfer magic array of the elves. When we arrived, the elves had already teleported away some of the plants in the jars. Plants? Lu Yunhao was curious too and squatted down to inspect the jars. Mr. Feng, can we take these plants back for examination? Feng Heng was about to answer, but suddenly noticed that one of the jars contained branches that belonged to Abakuya's specimen. Claraway had indeed mentioned that she was trying to fuse Abakuya with other alien plants to help Abakuya evolve further. Lu Yunhao quietly said, Mr. Feng? Mr. Feng? Yeah, take them all back for examination. Inform me immediately if there's any news. Certainly, thank you for your support. Of the three elves, two went insane and one died, and the clues temporarily stopped. It was estimated that the Federation would not be able to find any useful leads either. Based on the current leads, Claraway most likely had gone to the elves' world. Helplessly, blindly searching everywhere was no solution, so Feng Heng could only try to inquire everywhere about ways to enter the elves' world. Back in the world of forests, Feng Heng calmed his mind and continued cultivation. He switched his mood and shifted to cultivating elemental science. Bits of natural energy gathered and condensed, flowing into Feng Heng's body with Abakuya's assistance in absorption. As the natural energy circulated inside, it was converted through the bloodline ability into chi. The chi was then converted again into pure elemental power. Feng Heng's mindset was peaceful as he adjusted his breathing. As cultivation started, lines of game hints gradually appeared. Hint: the player gained 12,192 Master Level Elemental Science Experience points. Hint: the player's Master Level Elemental Science upgraded to level 21. Hint: the player gained 12,192 Master Level Elemental Science Experience points. After an unknown period, suddenly, a line of dark red warning game hints appeared. Hint: the player gained 12,192 Master Level Elemental Science Experience points. Hint: Abakuya's energy points are being absorbed. Warning: under the influence of an unknown force, Abakuya's experience points are decreasing. Huh? What was happening? Feng Heng suddenly snapped out of cultivation after seeing the game hint. Energy absorption? What was going on? Carefully checking, Abakuya's energy points were slowly decreasing at an extremely slow rate. Abakuya. What's going on? Abakuya immediately communicated through a mental link. Just now, Abakuya had been affected by an invisible force that was slowly extracting the energy within his body. This force was very special and was a one-sided predatory extraction. Abakuya could only try his best to resist, slowing the energy extraction speed considerably. The missing Claraway. The elves. Abakuya. Feng Heng frowned slightly. They were all connected. The elves' target was very likely Abakuya. Feng Heng asked, is there any way to determine the source of this force? None. After receiving Abakuya's negative reply, Feng Heng frowned even deeper. Abakuya's energy was enormous. At this slow depletion rate, it didn't affect Abakuya much. But if it continued, the extractor's speed might increase. The problem needed to be solved quickly. While thinking, the teleportation magic array of Abakuya slowly activated. Arkley brought Lu Yunhao out of the magic array. Your Majesty, this guy says he wants to see you. Lu Yunhao, dizzy after multiple teleportation passages, saw Feng Heng and immediately nodded and said, Mr. Feng, We have found some information related to the elves and came at once to communicate with you. Any clues about the elves' world coordinates? Sorry, none found. Lu Yunhao shook his head and continued, this information was confirmed from the Iron-Eating Beast tribe. The elves have appeared in the Spawn Alliance's military corps. They rarely appear as fleets but mostly join various fleets as 1 to 3 mercenaries. The elves' strength ranks among the top of the various races, so they are favored by fleets. But the elves are always secretive and have never revealed their world coordinates. Also, we got some other information. While carrying out missions, the elves have been inquiring about the Tree of Life or the Genesis Tree. Fang Heng stroked his chin. The Tree of Life. He remembered. Claraway had once called Abaki of it as well. Mr. Fang, the 2 elves we brought back have completely lost their consciousness, we can't get more information from them. This is all we currently have. We will continue to gather intelligence and inform you immediately if there's news. Good. Fang Heng nodded and signaled darkly to lead Lu Yunhao away. Chapter 3014, Take the Initiative. The inheritance of the elves was also very ancient, so using some secret method to remotely control Abakia was perfectly normal. However, the elves were extremely secretive about the world they lived in, outsiders simply did not know the entrance. In that case, Fang Heng narrowed his eyes. There was only one way left. To take the initiative. Abakia, could you sense the opponent's strength? How much weaker or stronger are they compared to you? Abakia transmitted an emotion. From the sensed strength, the opponent was somewhat stronger than him and seemed to have some restraint against him. Is that so? Fang Heng pondered and asked, what if you could successfully reach the next tier and enter the complete form stage? Abakia's emotion immediately became expectant. Is that so? Hee. Fang Heng felt the emotion Abakia sent and chuckled lightly. Crush him? Abakia, don't just say big talk casually. Somewhere in hell. A withering flower growing in the cracks of the rock wall continuously sprayed pollen that confused the mind. Several hell demons were comfortably soaked in a lava pool. Suddenly, sulfur bubbles surged in the lava currents. A lava demon, entangled in chains, lifted its head from the crimson molten liquid and looked toward a hellhound nearby that was gnawing on the corpse of an inferior demon. Lava gargoyles hanging from the top of the lava cave maintained their stone statue posture, only revealing their dark red eyes. A peaceful and calm scene. Suddenly, a faint ripple appeared hidden somewhere in space. The boundary between hell and the outside world gradually blurred. Pa. Fang Heng's figure stepped out from the space passage into hell. Po. Po. The lava gargoyles, extremely sensitive to strength perception, were startled, waking from their stone statue states, flapping their wings and flying deeper into the hell cave. The lava demon sensed the intruder and gradually lifted its body from the lava pool. The moment it saw Fang Heng clearly, the lava demon immediately felt a tremor originating from the soul, hurriedly disappearing back into the lava pool. The hellhound gnawing on the inferior demon's corpse raised its head and stared at Fang Heng, growling lowly with a warning tone, its body trembling uncontrollably from fear. Fang Heng coldly glanced around, his gaze gathered on the hellhound. He raised his hand and lightly snapped his fingers. Bang! Bang bang bang! The hellhounds that had not yet escaped instantly exploded into blood mist. That was a bit too flashy. If the jealousy demonic seed discovered it, it would be bad. Fang Heng muttered quietly to himself and slowly withdrew his aura. Entering hell was easy for Fang Heng. He only needed to build a hell altar and, with the cooperation of hell believers, perform the Hellgate ritual to easily open a passage fusing the world and hell. After cooperating with the demonic seeds Ginger and Baemyu in the Holy Realm, Ginger's group had entered hell. Several demonic seeds in Baemyu's squad thought Ginger and the others might have found clues in hell on how to deal with the jealousy demonic seed or the demon core, so they went to pursue it. Later, Baemyu sent him a letter through special channels. The letter mentioned that during their exploration in hell, they encountered Ginger. Ginger had indeed found a method in hell to control the demon core with the jealousy demonic seed, but they were currently facing serious trouble that even Ginger and Baemyu's combined teams could not solve. They planned to continue gathering strength, sending some people to keep watch on the demon core in hell, and others to look for demonic seed allies outside to strengthen their power. Baemyu said they would soon travel to various worlds to find demonic seeds and strengthen the resistance team, while causing trouble for the jealousy demonic seed to distract its attention. Ginger's team would temporarily stay in hell, watching the demon core, and would act once they found an opportunity. At the end of the letter, Baemyu also left Fang Heng's coordinates in hell, indicating Ginger's group's location. When Fang Heng received the letter, he was still building the starship fleet and was lost in outer space, unable to return home, so the matter was temporarily set aside. Nearly 2 months had passed, and he did not know how Ginger's melee combat was going. At least the jealousy demonic seed's aura was still present in his sea of consciousness, meaning the jealousy demonic seed was safe. Ibaka needed to absorb 7 different hell origin powers to fully level up to the next tier complete form. Last time in the Holy Realm Suppression Temple, he absorbed a lot, but still lacked about half. The ones he lacked the most were the powers of greed and jealousy that belonged to him. To complete Ibakuya's advancement, the most troublesome part was still the power of the demonic seed of jealousy. After such a long delay, the grudge with the jealousy demonic seed could finally be settled properly. In any case, first see what trouble the demonic seeds have encountered. Feng Heng released his perception, confirmed his position, and walked toward the lower levels of hell. Hell was an extremely vast maze. Layer after layer of divided spaces. Each layer varied in size, some layers might have thousands of entrances leading deeper, or sometimes none at all. Sometimes, to reach a lower layer, one had to return to the upper layer to find the true entrance. Even the demonic seeds did not know exactly how many layers hell had. Generally, the deeper the layer, the stronger the evil power in hell. Ginger and the others were currently on the 29th layer of hell. Since the letters specifically mentioned hiding aura, Feng Heng did not act boldly but switched to an academic form, disguising himself as a spatial science scholar, and infiltrated using the secondary projection ability of spatial science. He avoided hell monsters as much as possible along the way. After half a day, Feng Heng finally entered the 28th layer of hell. Theoretically, Ginger and the others were on the next passage down. Feng Heng felt his way toward an entrance to the lower passage. As he approached the area near the next passage entrance, the surroundings grew especially dim. Feng Heng's footsteps sounded slightly on the hard ground. In the darkness, 2 faint eyes followed his every move. A fat one and a thin one glanced at each other and exchanged a look. The other party had spatial science abilities and good skills in hiding aura. A troublesome opponent. Attack. Whoosh. 2 cold lights shot straight at Feng Heng from the shadows, suddenly exploding right in front of him. Feng Heng's eyes quickly moved to the 2 attackers. Oh? Demonic seeds? Bang. Feng Heng stepped back half a step and fiercely swung a punch forward. Boom. He struck first. The air exploded with a loud sonic boom. A powerful spiritual energy burst out, sending the 2 demonic seeds flying backward. Chapter 3015, Exploring Hell. What the hell? The 2 demonic seeds were forced back by a single strike from Feng Heng and were instantly surprised in their hearts. Such a strong guy. Come again. The 2 demonic seeds didn't know Feng Heng had held back. They only thought his strength was impressive but still within their ability to handle. That strike instead stirred their bloodlust. Whoosh. Whoosh. The thinner demonic seed condensed a mark in front of him. Together with the fat one, they flanked Feng Heng from different directions, converging on him once more. At the same time, the solid ground beneath Feng Heng rapidly condensed into scorching magma. From within the magma, several tentacles of molten swamp reached out, trying to trap Feng Heng on the ground. Feng Heng had no intention of dodging. He merely looked calmly at the 2 approaching again and said, "Don't be so hasty. I came here looking for Ginger. Who the hell cares who you are? Kneel down, bastard." Perhaps trying to regain face after suffering from Feng Heng's earlier blow, the thinner Liu Mo let out an angry laugh and became even more aggressive. Boom. Boom boom. From the magma-covered ground, several stone pillars rose rapidly. Inside the stone pillars were honeycomb-like crystals, and with intense energy surges, tens of thousands of sharp crystal shards shot out like shrapnel in a fan shape. Huh? The 2 demonic seeds were shocked to find that Feng Heng still didn't dodge, letting the high-temperature crystal shards blast directly onto his body. He just stood there and let them attack? Damn it. Looking down on me? Liu Mo felt even more upset seeing Feng Heng so dismissive. Then explode. Boom. Boom 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 boom. The dense lava shards struck Feng Heng's body and exploded in succession. Whoosh. Using the explosion and flying shards as cover, Liu Mo flew toward Feng Heng. Die, idiot. Whoosh. Liu Mo punched Feng Heng straight in the chest, slamming heavily into him. But to his shock, it was like hitting an iron wall. He couldn't even move an inch forward. The force of his punch seemed completely absorbed. What? Liu Mo's face filled with shock. No damage at all? That combo of attacks even Ginger wouldn't dare take them head-on without dodging. But this guy took all of it without moving? Enough. I told you, I came here to see Ginger. Feng Heng spoke flatly, then reached out and grabbed Liu Mo's fist, gently flinging him back like a rag doll. Huh? Feng Heng looked down and saw a blood-red magic array rapidly condensing around the imprint of Liu Mo's punch on his skin. Liu Mo, unable to control himself, was flung through the air. While still midair, a bloodthirsty grin curled on his lips. Fatty. Kill him. Feng Heng's pupils contracted. The demonic seed Marcus, who had just turned into a blood shadow and vanished from aura sensing, suddenly reappeared. His aura surged out from the magic array on Fang Heng's chest, forming a face that quickly emerged and opened its mouth, biting down hard on Fang Heng's right side. Bang! Marcus bit down, instantly tearing off and swallowing most of Fang Heng's right side, including his shoulder. Ha! Got him! Fat Marcus shouted with delight after biting off and swallowing Fang Heng's body, but in the next instant, Fang Heng's remaining hand gripped his neck tightly. What? Liu Mo had no time to celebrate before seeing that Fang Heng missing half his body acted like nothing had happened, using his remaining hand to lock onto Marcus's neck, slowly and forcibly pulling Marcus out of the magic array embedded in his chest. Bang! Marcus felt the world spinning. He was flung out and slammed hard against the rocky wall. What? Marcus and Liu Mo struggled to get up and looked at Fang Heng in horror. The right side of Fang Heng's body that had been bitten off was wriggling strangely and rapidly regenerating before their eyes. Even the magic array on his chest quickly faded away. Fang Heng's face darkened, and his voice turned icy. I told you I came here to see Ginger. Repeated provocations had stirred a wave of anger in Fang Heng's heart. If not for his recent surge in strength, that series of coordinated attacks might have really caused trouble for him. Interesting moves. Now, it's my turn. Fang Heng gave the two no chance to speak. He suddenly raised his hand and pointed at Liu Mo. As Fang Heng aimed at him with one hand, Liu Mo's heart sank, and his body began to float uncontrollably into the air. What? Liu Mo's expression changed drastically. He suddenly realized he had lost control over his own body. What was going on? Marcus was also deeply shocked. He stared at Fang Heng and sensed the holy attribute leaking from him. His body trembled involuntarily. It's over. Why did he feel an instinctive sense of fear? Who was this guy? Why did he radiate holy attribute ripples? Could he be from the Holy Court? But why would someone from the Holy Court come to a place like hell? Boom! A loud thunderclap suddenly echoed through the dark cavern. God's punishment. A bolt of purple lightning struck Liu Mo instantly. Liu Mo's expression changed drastically. Unlike the previous superficial injuries, God's punishment lightning carried devastating origin damage. Boom! Boom boom! Bolts of lightning continued to rain down. Each bolt struck Liu Mo, but Marcus was terrified as well. Each strike made his heart jump in fear. Liu Mo clenched his teeth and couldn't even speak, glaring at Fang Heng with eyes full of wrath. Each lightning strike attacked his core, gradually and permanently weakening his power. He could feel his origin being drained bit by bit. At this rate, he might be completely shattered by the lightning soon. Fang Heng. A voice came from the darkness. That's enough. He's learned his lesson. Give me some face and let him live, he's still useful later. Fang Heng shifted his gaze from Liu Mo toward the nearby shadows. Ginger stepped out of the darkness, flanked by two demonic seeds from the Holy Realm. HMPH. Fang Heng let out a cold snort and flicked his hand. Bang! Liu Mo was immediately thrown aside, crashing into the rock wall and smashing a huge dent in it. Congratulations. You've made great progress since we last met. Ginger had originally been on the 29th floor. When he sensed the ripples of a holy attribute from the upper level, he rushed up to investigate. Upon seeing Fang Heng, he was secretly startled. Compared to their last meeting, Fang Heng's strength had advanced again. Ginger could no longer see through him. This guy. How the hell was he cultivating? His rate of growth was terrifying. Fang Heng stepped forward and said with a smile, Ginger, you've been hard to find. It's been a while, what have you been hiding down here for? Chapter 3016, Think of a Way. Ran into a bit of a tricky situation, Ginger said helplessly, spreading his hands. Come with me, you'll understand once you see it. The fat man carefully stepped forward and helped up the severely injured Liu Mo, who had a look of wrath and unwillingness on his face. Ginger led Fang Heng deeper into the 29th layer of hell. Before long, they arrived at a cavern. With one glance, Fang Heng saw that more than 20 demonic seeds had gathered inside the cavern. The demonic seeds were either lying down, leaning against the cave walls, or hanging upside down from the ceiling. Noticing that Ginger had personally brought someone over, many demonic seeds cast curious glances toward Fang Heng. Most of them were untamed, and their eyes carried a hint of provocation. Fang Heng, Echidna is entrenched on the 30th layer, guarding the demon core. To avoid unnecessary trouble, we need to conceal our aura. Ginger gave a reminder, then nodded towards Yuan Yufei. Yuan Yufei snapped her fingers lightly, and a dark light screen enveloped and protected the three of them, including Ginger. Let's go. I'll take you to see the demon core. After twisting and turning through the cavern's passageways, Ginger led Fang Heng to the entrance of the 30th layer of hell and stepped into the passage first. As soon as they entered the 30th layer, a chilling aura immediately filled the surroundings. Fang Heng furrowed his brow slightly. Hell usually gave off an oppressive heat that constantly provoked negative emotions. But the 30th layer felt different. It had a chilling aura. Upon closer inspection, the surrounding cave walls were coated in a faint blue slime-like substance. Not just the walls, even the surface of the nearby lava pools was covered by a slowly flowing layer of faint blue matter. That's Echidna. You may be hearing this name for the first time. Simply put, Echidna is one of the guardians of the abyss of hell and the ruler of layers 21 to 30. Ginger continued to explain as he walked forward. She has already fallen under the control of the jealousy demonic seed and has become its servant. The demon core is currently guarded by Echidna. Fang Heng noticed how cautious Ginger was along the way, even concealing their aura, and couldn't help but ask, if you're being this careful, she must be powerful? Not weak, Ginger nodded. But the real problem lies with Asklina, the tongues of jealousy. Asklina has placed an illusion of the tongues of jealousy here. It can sense everything happening in this place. If any danger arises, Asklina's main body can immediately enter through the illusion. We can deal with Echidna, but we can't kill her without alerting jealousy. I see. Fang Heng gave a small nod of understanding. Soon, Ginger brought Fang Heng to a cliff. In front of the cliff, what should have been a flowing lava pool now glowed with an eerie blue hue and exuded a chilling coldness. Zhuang Yufei pointed toward the upper part of the lava pool and said, Fang Heng, it's up there. Fang Heng looked up. 5 demon cores, each roughly the size of a head, floated high above the icy magma, slowly revolving around a tall central stone pillar. From the base of the stone pillar, a web of condensed blue fluid extended upward, covering and merging with the surface of the 5 demon cores, connecting the pillar and the cores into a single structure. Those are the demon cores representing the source of our 5 powers, Ginger explained coldly. The blue magma and all the blue substances we've seen along the way are parts of Echidna's main body. The blue slime is spread throughout layers 21 to 30 of hell. They are all Echidna's eyes, capable of sensing the approach of danger in advance. Luckily, Echidna's perception isn't too strong. We can still hide our aura and observe in advance. Zhuang Yufei shrugged and said helplessly, even so, once we attempt to take the demon cores, we will inevitably trigger Echidna, and the tongues of jealousy will detect the anomaly. See that? That's the tongues of jealousy. Fang Heng looked up toward the spot Ginger pointed to in the sky. Above the rotating demon cores, a tongue-like structure drooped slightly from the ceiling and swayed gently. Upon closer inspection, one could see tiny eyeballs attached to the tip of the tongue. Normally, jealousy controls Echidna through the tongues of jealousy. During our last battle with jealousy, she remotely manipulated the demon cores and affected our origin, absorbing our strength massively. Fang Heng stroked his chin and stared at the floating 5 demon cores, falling into deep thought. Zhuang Yufei said, our plan is to divide into 2 teams. One team stays here and waits for an opportunity. The other goes out into the various worlds to gather the remaining demonic seeds and attempt to rally their strength. Then we'll try to draw jealousy's attention and take Echidna down while she's distracted. HMPH. Ginger snorted coldly. If jealousy loses the demon cores, we'll have what it takes to crush her completely. Zhuang Yufei added, Fang Heng, as you can see, we're the group staying behind to wait for the right moment. Beimu is leading the other team, but they haven't made much progress yet. You're the one who found us. Fang Heng listened to the whole explanation, thought for a moment, then raised his head and asked, how much time do you need? What? If you don't factor in jealousy's interference, how long would it take to kill Echidna and retrieve the demon cores with your current strength? Zhuang Yufei and Ginger exchanged a glance. Echidna is very strong. Considering her special abilities, and that she'll try to use the demon cores to resist in a crisis. Ginger interrupted, fastest would be 3 minutes, slowest 10. Is that so? Fang Heng calculated silently. Let's go with 10 minutes. Not too long. No need to wait for Beimu's team. Let's start the operation now. I'll handle distracting the tongues of jealousy and Asklina buy you the 10 minutes you need. Fang Heng shrugged and added, once you've secured the demon cores, we'll regroup and take on Asklina together. Ginger's expression changed slightly as he stared at Fang Heng. So confident. Ginger and Zhuang Yufei both sensed that Fang Heng had grown significantly stronger since they last met, but they hadn't expected him to be this bold, thinking he could deal with Asklina alone. The two exchanged another glance. Confidence wasn't a bad thing. But if Fang Heng failed, their long-planned operation to seize the demon cores could fall apart. If jealousy discovered them, it would be extremely hard to get another chance. Relax, Fang Heng noticed their doubt and said, don't forget there's no demon core here that corresponds to me. Jealousy can't affect me. I'm the most suitable person for the mission. Ginger asked, what method do you plan to use to attract jealousy? Fang Heng smirked and replied, naturally, I'll be using the power of the Holy Light. Chapter 3017, Condensing Will the Holy Realm. Since the disaster crisis was resolved and the God King awoke, He hastily issued several orders and then once again entered seclusion. Rumors spread outside that the God King had gained insights during his years-long battle with the disaster and needed to cultivate in seclusion to break through. However, the truth was otherwise. During the battle with the disaster, the Holy Court's God-given orb had been displaced due to Fang Heng's interference. Moreover, with its outer protective shield destroyed, the power of the God-given orb was leaking at an alarming rate. The God King had no choice but to use the power of the orb to cultivate, thereby consuming its strength to prevent its energy from spreading excessively. Meanwhile, various reconstruction efforts within the Holy Realm were beginning to take priority. Thanks to the destruction caused by the demonic seeds and the disaster, the entire Holy Realm was in ruins and desperately needed rebuilding. After consulting with several great sages of the Holy Realm, the God King decided to temporarily focus all efforts on the reconstruction, and the Holy Court ceased its habit of making enemies everywhere. Report. A Holy Realm guard rushed into the Pantheon Temple and respectfully reported, "Great Sage." Great Sage Aladdin slowly opened his eyes and asked, "What happened? Why the urgency?" Reporting to the Great Sage, Commander Hain of the God's Punishment Night Legion left word that they received news from Great Sage Fang Bei and have already set out with the Legion to the lower realm to meet him. Huh? What? Fang Bei? Aladdin was slightly surprised. Though Fang Bei's background was somewhat mysterious and he had left behind quite a mess, he had indeed helped greatly during the battle against the disaster. The Holy Realm had never truly questioned his identity. Since Fang Heng's disappearance, the Holy Realm had only sent people to gather information. As a great sage of the Holy Realm, no one other than the God King had the authority to order Fang Heng to do anything. Even the three great sages were his equals. Even if they found Fang Heng, at most, they could deliver a message. There was no way they could forcibly bring Fang Bei back to the Holy Realm. Moreover, the great sages believed Fang Bei must have had his reasons for heading to the lower realm and saw no need to interfere unnecessarily. Over time, with no news from Fang Bei, people had gradually forgotten about him. Beside him, Great Sage Dean asked, "So the God's Punishment Night Legion has received word from Great Sage Fang Bei? Where is he?" "Eternal Holy City." The guard respectfully nodded. "We only just received the news." Great Sage Fang Bei entered Eternal God's Sanctum last night and immediately began recruiting members of the Holy Court's ecclesiastical Templars from various worlds, along with elite forces from various regions of the Holy Court. This includes, but is not limited to, Holy Paladin squads, priest teams, archbishops, judge squads, and guardian teams. Currently, all teams who received instructions are gathering rapidly and entering the Eternal Holy City. What was going on? Why such a massive mobilization? What did he need so many people for? Dean and the other great sages were stunned by what they heard. Not long ago, they had just discussed with the God King that the Holy Court should lie low for a while. And now, Fang Bei was calling for a full mobilization? What does he intend to do? Reportedly, he plans to pass through the trial passage in the Eternal Holy City to enter Hell. The three great sages looked at each other. This newly promoted great sage usually kept a low profile, now he suddenly wanted to challenge Hell? Though the Holy Court had always viewed Hell as a mortal enemy and a major threat, it wasn't like they would launch an attack on Hell out of nowhere, especially under the current circumstances. The main concern was the cost. Hell had been gradually expanding. If the Holy Court poured its forces into Hell, it might not be worth the drain on resources. So in the past, unless Hell was rapidly expanding, the Holy Court typically wouldn't venture deep inside. At most, they sent some teams in for training purposes. Aladdin frowned and asked, "Did Great Sage Fang Bei mention his specific goal for entering Hell?" Well. The guard lowered his head, carefully glanced at the three great sages, and softly said, "He said he wanted to avenge the members of the Holy Court Church who died in the war against Hell. He plans to bathe Hell in blood." Huh? All three great sages were stunned and exchanged dry smiles. This newly promoted great sage really had a wild imagination and unconventional methods. Bathe Hell in blood? That didn't sound like something a Holy Court great sage would say. "All right, you're dismissed." Aladdin gestured for the guard to leave, then turned to the other two great sages and asked, "What do you think?" For a moment, none of them could figure out Fang Heng's intentions. Fang Bei has always had a bold style, but he is still a great sage of our Holy Court. I believe he wouldn't do anything that would harm us. However, entering Hell is extremely dangerous. To be safe, we should send people to support him and find out what exactly is going on before we make any decisions. They looked at each other. With great sage Fang Bei's strength, he can handle most situations. Sending others might not be enough to stop or reason with him. We may need to go ourselves. I'll go. Great Sage Dean stood up from the magic array and said, "I've been cooped up here too long, I could use the exercise. Besides, I quite like the kid's personality. I'll go myself." "In that case, take more people with you." Great Sage Dean, please be careful. Oh, and... Lucius suddenly seemed to remember something. He lowered his head to think, then looked up and around at everyone, and said, do you think Fang Bei might be trying to condense the will of the 12 sages? At his words, the 3 great sages in the hall immediately fell silent. Dean, who had just taken a step forward, also stopped and turned to look at the others. The will of the 12 sages? Well, damn. Only he would dare think of that. It was common knowledge how extremely difficult it was to condense the will of the 12 sages. All of them had attempted it before, and all had failed. And Fang Bei had only recently become a great sage. He already dared to attempt such a feat? But then again, on second thought, if not to condense the will of the 12 sages, why else would this kid suddenly charge into hell like a madman? And to be honest, hell was a perfect place to condense the will. 6th layer of hell. As the Holy Court's spatial passage opened, ecclesiastical Templars, normal reserve Templars, priests, holy paladin squads, and various teams from the lower realms began gathering and marching through the passage into hell. The scorching holy light dispersed the oppressive heat and aura lingering in hell. The first wave of hell creatures had already been completely wiped out by Fang Heng. In the aftermath of the intense divine power ripples, no hell creatures nearby dared approach. Hain soon arrived with the God's Punishment Night Legion. Chapter 3018, condensing. Since Fang Heng disappeared, although Hain was in the Holy Realm, he had been trying all kinds of methods to search for Fang Heng's whereabouts. As soon as he learned that Fang Heng had appeared in the Eternal Holy City, he rushed over without even having time to inform the great sages of the Holy Realm, leaving behind a note in haste. Finally, he found Fang Heng in hell. Greetings, great sage. Hain, long time no see. You've worked hard during this time. Fang Heng nodded with a smile and gestured. This time, you'll come with me. Understood. Hain suppressed the excitement in his heart. His expression was serious as he said in a deep voice, the God's Punishment Night Legion swears to follow the great sage to the death. Most of the people are here. Let's begin. Fang Heng stood at the front of the team and raised the great holy sword in his hand high, for our fallen comrades, for the eternal peace of the world, follow me and cleanse hell with blood. Cleanse hell with blood. Thousands of Holy Court soldiers shouted the slogan in unison after Fang Heng. Holy light condensed and suddenly blossomed, the released holy ripple quickly purifying the surrounding hellish environment. March! The Night Legions of the Holy Court began stepping forward, slowly clearing their way deeper into hell. Meanwhile, in the rear of the group, the priest team used holy purification spells to cleanse large areas of the hellish terrain with holy power. Take it slow. This high-profile operation of studying hell was a deliberate plan by Fang Heng. Marching in so openly, they wouldn't even need to reach the 29th layer before the jealousy demonic seed would detect them and personally came to stop their continued advance. At that time, Fang Heng squinted his eyes. He wanted to see how much strength there really was between him and the jealousy demonic seed. The Holy Court team had a large number of people, and their strength was considerable. But even so, after reaching the 16th layer of hell, the team began to slow down due to suppression by the domain. In front, waves of hell creatures roared and surged toward the Holy Court team from the grotto. The Glory Knight Legion guarding the front line, under the blessings from the priest teams, fought bravely, blocking the hell creatures.